Hello and welcome to SkepTalk. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai. It's the show where we talk about things related to skepticism and skepticism-related things. We are, of course, as always, a little bit late today. This time, I blame Matt Dillahunty. I don't know why. I'm joined today by my friend Roxanne. Roxanne, how are you doing today?
I am amazing. I am very happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. The reason why I invited Roxanne on is because she is a brilliant scientist working on some really, really cool things that I'm very interested in. And I would love to hear you just explain who you are and what you do. Please introduce yourself to the thousands of people who would love to know why I brought you on the show.
Awesome. So like Forrest said, my name is Roxanne. I am an upcoming 6th-year PhD student, which sounds really awful to say. This will be my last year. And I am finishing up my PhD in social psychology, which is basically studying how social interactions are shaped by and further shape our psychology. I specifically study interpersonal dynamics, and even more specifically within that, I study how living in a patriarchal, objectifying culture impacts women's sense of self, and also how other people view and treat women. And then within that, even further, I study how that's all exacerbated in social media landscapes. So I do research on like online sexual harassment and dehumanization of women, and how that relates to things like judgments in domestic violence rulings and all this super fun stuff. And for the last couple of years, I've been dabbling in science communication, which is how Forrest and I met. I've been, taking to TikTok to share my research and other research with the masses, because I think it's interesting. So I think maybe 5 other people might think it's interesting too. And yeah, I'm about to wrap up my PhD, and I don't know if I will head to academia or exit that ship. But I'm excited for whatever that is. So that's me.
Right on. I love that. And that's really why I brought you on, because like I've seen so much of your content recently, where you've really been exploring the social effects of the patriarchy around us. And I think you've even talked about some of the neurological effects as well, some of the things that people deal with on a physical level. And we've talked on the show quite a bit about feminist theory, theory in archaeology, about feminist theory in social sciences. And very often, people pretend like this is like a political thing, when I feel like it's one of the ones that super duper shouldn't be. As we said on, I was on AXB recently with Secular Rarity, and he said, if you use your skeptical brain, if you're actually applying the principles of skepticism properly, you will end up in favor of LGBT people. And I thought about what he said in that, and I was like, you know what? Honestly, when I apply that same thing, I think when you use your skepticism fairly, when you really do think about things critically, you'll wind up in the same feminist camp as well. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That's what feminist science, like when I say I do feminist science, people think that means that I study feminism. But what feminist science is being critical of the ways in which science has historically been conducted, which is by men, on men, about white men. Like it's never considered how social structures are impacting the research that we're doing or the results that we're seeing. And that's what feminist science is. It isn't that I'm asking people, how much of a feminist are you? Although I do that sometimes. But it's the way that we're conducting the science and what we're thinking about, which is being skeptical about how historically science has been done.
I remember there are a few things. Like I first of all, I remember somebody saying like the definition of the word woke is anything that calls into question or points out or goes against the patriarchal, heteronormative, cisgendered, white supremacist patriarchy, hegemony, that guy. And like, so many people, and they're like, oh, all these buzzwords, all these things. It's like, it's just, have you tried looking at everything and just seeing like what's the major themes that come out? It's like when people say, oh, there's all these, all these black people and all these gay people in media every day, all the time. It's like, there's like 3. and that's up from 1, and you're freaking out.
Right.
So like,
Right.
if that was if it really is the case that having all gay people or all black people or all women in media would be a problem, how do you think it's been when it's been all straight white
All
men
white people.
this whole
Yep.
damn time? So like, I love it, like when you talk about feminist theory in this way, just as being a critical analysis of what we've been doing and the way things have been
Mm-hmm.
going, not necessarily, what I think people, the kind of the bad taste people tend to think about when they think about this word, as it's been so reviled for so long.
Right.
Would you mind just kind of giving us like you already did a little bit, but just could you expand a little bit, give us a brief synopsis of like what you mean when you talk about feminism? Like, where are you coming from? What's the goal? Who are you really talking to? What are you trying to get out of the conversation? Where's your mind at in this whole thing?
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
I'm
Just
talking.
whatever you want to do. We got calls on the line
Can
too. I just want to make sure you were thoroughly introduced.
So, I mean, I feel like with feminism, there are so many different kind of like camps of thought. And I was actually kind of thinking about this today when I was like getting ready for this. Like I showered and then I like put some makeup on and I was like, what if someone is like, you're a feminist? Like, why did you put makeup on for this? And I'm like, everyone kind of has a different version of feminism. It's whatever works for them. But for me, it's not like women should not do things that are in some way rooted in patriarchy, like wearing makeup. It's that why can't men feel free to express themselves by wearing makeup in a culture that so strictly enforces masculinity, whereby putting product on your face would somehow like infringe on your definition of manhood. Like for me, it's always in the system that we're in, we've got to work with what we got, but I'm like just as much interested in pursuing like women's equality in terms of like fair pay, access to jobs, all of that, as I am to like considering the way that the patriarchy is harming men and non-women and creating inequality in that way. Like it's not just about women wanting more money or women wanting better jobs. It's about this system that is has so strictly just like restricted all of us in different ways. And especially considering like intersectionality in that and why, queer women and women of color they just always get the short end of the stick. And so for me, it's just, again, like considering historical perspectives and how those have contributed to where we find ourselves today and how we can, given what we have right now, move forward for everyone.
Right.
That's my version of feminism.
Dude, that is such a good answer. And that's exactly what I was hoping you'd get down the route. It's so freaking good. Because that's really the biggest thing is that like when people hear about feminism, they hear the word feminine and they're like, oh, so this is just women's stuff. I was like, no, it's an everybody thing.
Women. Yeah.
It's an everybody thing. And like, it's, if any of us are being oppressed or shit on, we all are. And if we can't see it that way, then we're never going to move forward. And I love that you started with talking about makeup. If guys, I have so many people that talk about, oh, I don't wear makeup, I don't wear nail polish, I'm not gay. It's like, dude, if getting some paint on your fingers is enough to make you gay, you're
almost
gay.
there.
You're right. I'll see you at Pride, dude. I'm sorry. That's
right.
If that's going to push you over the edge, it's madness. We have a bunch of calls on the line already, and I want to open up some more lines. So I'm going to get through a couple of them with you. We've got I should ask, are you down to start answering questions from the general public?
I'm ready.
Cool. Right on. We're going to start off then with Hard calling in from India. Hard has questions about gender and gender ideology. Hard, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
Oh, hey, I'm doing good. It's 4:48 in the morning, but it's good. Okay, so Forrest, and Roxanne, I had these two questions, and it's mostly about like gender identity from a scientific perspective. And before I ask this, I want to make sure that this is very clear. I think we should treat trans people with respect and dignity, like anyone else. Okay, be nice to them. Right, let's get that out there before we move forward. So
I appreciate the clarification because we get a lot of assholes.
Yeah. So the questions are, what is the evidence that gender identity exists? How do you know that there is such a thing as gender identity? Some sort of sex-related cognitive state, I suppose. That's, I suppose, how you could define it. And
Yeah.
if it exists, how do you measure it? And like, if it exists and you can measure it, why should it matter? In the sense of, how does having the gender identity of a man make someone a man? Like, that's
Right.
basically my question. And the thing is, I don't really see a lot of people on like the trans rights activist side, and I don't mean this in a demeaning or like ridiculing way. In a way, I don't mean it in that kind of way. I don't really
Right.
see a lot of people on the trans rights activist side who are like you, who are trying to analyze this from a more biological perspective. So like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's basically what I wanted to ask.
Sure. I've got a few answers, but Roxanne, do you want to start us off?
Well, so I'd love just to clarify, when you say, how do we know that gender identity exists? Do you mean, how do we know that there exist like differences in gender like category? Because my initial instinct is, well, someone's gender identity exists because they tell me that they are a woman or they are a man. But when you were asking about like neurological stuff, are you asking like, are there differences associated with gender identity at like a neural level, and that's how we know that different identities exist?
Yeah, like, yeah, that's basically what I'm asking, because here's the thing: people's identities very much matter, their experiences very much do matter, but I also think it's also important to see, okay, yeah, this exists, but like, is there some sort of like biological, like, how do you put this? Is this something that's biological as well? Like, that's what I'm asking.
Mm.
Forrest, you might know more of kind of the bio side of this, because I don't do much biopsych, and I tend to stray far away from like bioessentialism research on like gender.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so there's a few things that I would start with here. And I think, Roxanne, I think you'll have some stuff to build off of, honestly, is that, like she just said, the tricky part, I am going to answer your question. It's going to sound like I'm avoiding it for a second, but I promise I'm not. The tricky part about looking for biological answers for gender is that you oftentimes end up in this Mott and Bailey argument where, if I can justify this biologically, then all of a sudden these people deserve to be treated like human beings. That's why I appreciate you starting the call by saying, I'm not coming from a transphobic, shitty perspective. I'm just asking, you know what I mean? Because that is often how it is. Well, unless I can find a biological reason, then, I don't have a reason to believe it. Now, as of right now, there is some public debate in the area of neuroscience. I often reference people like Robert Sapolsky, who has a bunch of stuff online. He's a neuroendocrinologist, a neurobiologist at Stanford University, written a bunch of books, done a bunch of really cool stuff on the topic, and he has a bunch of materials talking about how people's neural architecture aligns with their gender identity, not their genitalia. And how, when it comes right down to it, if someone's telling you this is how they feel and their body's saying something else, he's going to believe their brain, not their body. And there are people out there who are also, studying in this field, who say, oh, well, he's not taking this and that and the other thing into account. And so, like, this is an area that it's not an area of expertise for me. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you which line is better. But it is something that, has been given a lot of credence over the past little while. As far as like biological evidence, as far as like the biological distinction between sex and gender, that's been a thing for damn near 100 years. We've had distinctions between sex and gender, with one being a biological construct and one being a social construct, for a very long time. And this is not a new definition, a new fun thing. You can find this in like lots and lots of introductory biology textbooks. As I have brought out on this show from time to time, when someone calls in and says, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, this is basic biology, there's men and women, I've got a genetics textbook right behind me that tells you something different. You know what I mean? And so that's another thing to take into account, is that this has been separated for a long time. The thing that I think is most important, though, as far as like, how can we tell that this is a real thing, is by looking at gender diverse cultures around the world. One of the last times you and I spoke hard, we talked about the Hijra there in India, having a third gender that are really neither male nor female. That's very different than how it is here in America.
Yeah. Yeah, Forrest. So, like, another thing, another reasonable counter argument I've heard to that is that, like, okay, these cultures have had, like, gender diverse identities. However,
Mhm.
how do we know that this is like a good thing? Because look, being from India, I know we've had like a lot of bad ideas in the past. How do we know that, like, having third gender identities is one of the good ideas that we made? Like, here's the thing: caste system, bad idea. Math, good idea. Which category do? How do we know, like, which category that gender diverse cultures fall into, and how do we know that we're right about this?
Yeah, the question I would ask is, does it's similar to when we talk about questions like homosexuality. We have tremendous amounts of biological evidence for why homosexuality is a normal and natural thing. There's even some really cool discussion going on. A friend of mine, Tyus, recently sent me a really good paper that details out, like, why are we calling heterosexuality like the right way to do things just because it's more common. Animals aren't keeping track of these categories. Why they could do whatever they want, you know what I mean? And so, like,
I'm pretty
we
sure
have a
animals
lot of
have
really
like
great biological
50
arguments
sub
for the
species if you want.
normality of homosexuality as opposed to heterosexuality. When we look at gender, we have the same kind of thing. We see a difference in nature. We see a difference in the human population. We see a difference in expression, even in non-human animals sometimes. So
But how?
it's a real thing.
Wait.
It's not hurting anything to be here. And indeed, when we allow this to be expressed properly and to its fullest extent, we actually see a big uptick in the happiness, mental, and physical well being of these people. So overall, it's a net societal positive, it's a net personal positive, and there are really no negatives that we can point to. So just like we talk about same sex marriage, like, yes, we can find a naturalistic component to it. Yes, it has a net positive for the mental and physical well-beings of these people, and there is no downside societally. In fact, there's a lot of social benefits. I would say the exact same argument applies to gender.
Oh, also, Forrest, another thing. I actually happened to find a link which had a collection to this. I just remembered this. The web page got taken down, but like you can go on, like, you know what the Wayback Machine is?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You can go on the Wayback Machine and type cakeworld.info. And basically, there's literally a collection of around 800 sources about trans people, right? Peer
Cool.
reviewed. You could maybe use that. I think, like, asking this question, like, you're remaking your old video about like gender, right? So, like,
Yeah, I would like to
I think
remake
that
that sometime. I wanted to remake it this year. I'm hoping to.
Yeah. So, like, I think, like, addressing some of the criticisms of your old video, which I understand there's not good criticism, there's good criticism.
I have
I
plenty
think
of criticisms
addressing
of
the
my old
reasonable
video. Could have been a lot better.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
also, like, just in general, like, I have another question of, like, what do you think about, okay, should I, like, I don't want to,
Really
like,
quickly before we move on, we've got other callers, and I want to get to them. But, like, really quickly,
yeah.
Roxanne, did you have anything to build off of what I was talking? Because I was talking for a long time.
I guess I'm just still hung up kind of on the first part of the question, which is how do we know that gender identity exists? Because as a social psychologist, so much of what we rely on is simply we ask people about their experiences and they tell us, right? And we can corroborate that if you're doing a physiological study or if you're doing like a social neuro study and you get some, EEG data or like some heart rate data, but we know, or at least we believe, that gender identity and a spectrum of gender identity exists because people tell us, right? If we put, what is your gender identity, man, woman, neither of these, even if those are the only categories that you give people will pick neither of these, and then they'll tell you what their identity is. And so, or like when I, as a social psychologist, when I think, does something exist, I'm thinking about it in a social way, more so than is there a biological mechanism to it, because there isn't a biological mechanism to a lot of our identities. I identify as a Taylor Swift fan. I identify as, whatever, a grad student. Does that mean that I'm going to have a different neural pattern in how I respond to stimuli because I have that identity? Or are we going to acknowledge that I do like Taylor Swift, I spend a lot of time listening to her music, or I spend a lot of time in the lab and am a grad student. So
Makes
that's
sense,
what I
yeah.
have to say.
Anyway, Hard, does that kind of answer the questions that you came in with?
Like, kind of. Like, I'm not saying you avoided it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good that
What
you're
specifically would
honest
you like more
about,
context on? Like, what did we miss?
in the sense of like clear, like I suppose evidence of like, okay, so here, I suppose like clear presentation of like, this is the evidence that for like the biological basis that gender identity exists, because I have read about it, but again, there's like more confounding variables that need to be taken into account that usually aren't. And I'm not saying like this was intentional or anything. It's mostly because
Right.
this is very much
It is.
like, yeah.
I think a lot of what's hard about this is in a lot of research, at least in my field, a lot of people are cisgender. So what you have is most people who are male, assigned male at birth and identify as men, and assigned female at birth and identify as women. And so teasing apart sex and gender becomes very hard. Do we know that whatever we're seeing, differences between men and women, is because of their, their hormones and their actual, biology, or is it because of their gender identity? So unfortunately, there is not a whole great amount of work on trans people or on non-binary people, which is something that hopefully soon will be happening. But when your sample is mostly made of cisgender folks, it's really hard to tease that apart.
Yeah. So I suppose that is a one way to look at it. So yeah, first, before you go, like, can I like ask, have one request? Like, can you like answer this question in the video? Because look, I have like a lot of friends who really appreciate like a better version of like your old video.
Oh yeah, I would
and
like to.
What?
I'm not familiar with this video.
It's about, God, it was almost like 2 or 3 years ago now. I made a video called Sex and Sensibility. It was the first long form YouTube video I ever made about deep diving into a science topic. I just tried to break apart, like, here's the biological definitions of sex, here's the definitions of gender, here's why neither of them are strict binary, here's why they all get fuzzy around the edges. I'm not saying these are completely pointless, but I am saying that they're kind of arbitrary labels that we're putting on things, and we need to be a lot more open about whatever. And I kind of just tried to make the case for weirdness being a normal staple of all of biology, and this part is no different. And I hate that video because it was the first one I ever did, and so the sound quality sucks, the video quality sucks, the editing sucks, the way that I wrote the script sucks. I should have been a lot more clear in my language. There's a few times where like it's not really clear if I'm talking about sex or gender by what I'm saying, and it's just confusing. And the way I did the citations at the end was supposed to be funny, and it ended up just being more confusing, and it's a bunch of shit. There's a bunch of problems with it that I wish I could do better. People like it, I do not. And so I want to remake it someday. That's what he's talking about.
It would be nice if like I remember your Light of Evolution series. That was like one of the best things I've ever seen on YouTube. Period.
Thank you.
So like it would be nice if you like maybe in that, and I think like the second episode you basically covered how we know what we know about evolution, right?
It would be great to do that about sex and gender as well.
Yeah. So like, my request is basically can you answer this question in that video, in your new video? Because I personally know like a lot of people who would really very much appreciate you giving an answer to like something the question that's often used to deny them basic human decency, right?
I will absolutely put that in the notebook for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna move on. We got a couple other callers, but I really appreciate your call, Hard.
Yeah, thank you, Forrest. Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you for calling in.
Bye. Good start. See, there was a lot there. And like I could sense like the frustration coming out of you where you're talking about like what do you mean, like how do like the biological reality of gender or whatever like that, because it's clear from what you're talking about now and what you've talked about in the past that like this is something that like of course it can be explained, but we shouldn't be sitting here waiting for an explanation. You know what I mean? I love your example, by the way, of saying you're a Taylor Swift fan. Is it that's an identity? Love that.
Right, but like that's kind of, when you're talking about gender identity, that's what it is. It's something that relates to how you present yourself to the world and how you navigate the world, and it doesn't always have to have a biological or associated neurological component.
That's kind of what sociology is all about. I mean, it's just like these are the things we do. We could probably find a reason if we dig hard enough for it, but what we know for sure is this is a thing that we do,
Right.
It's interesting to me because like it just I find we encounter this problem quite a bit, or this kind of argument or question quite a bit. It's like, okay, well, point to me to the part of the brain that gives you a gender. Point to me to the part of the brain that makes a trans person trans, whatever like this. Or, show me the exact neural architecture or the exact hormonal balance or whatever like that. And what I always worry is, number one, like we said at the beginning, like you shouldn't wait to give these people rights before you can find this. And also, I worry that will come up to the same kind of issue that we have, like when we talk about autism. Show me the thing that's causing it so that we can fix it. And it's like, we're not looking for a fix. We're looking for explanations and understanding, but like that's not the same thing as a cure. You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, even if you're looking at men and women, we have the same brains. Some regions might work differently on average, but that doesn't mean that every man's brain is going to work the same and every woman's brain is going to work the same. Like if you're looking for differences like that, like, yeah, maybe you can find markers of how men and women typically like respond differently or how their amygdala works in different situations, but you're not going to find like a man brain and a woman brain.
Right.
And
I often point because there are, like, if I remember correctly, there are a few like minor brain regions that are like a little tiny bit sexually dimorphic, and it's like patches of neurons the size of a grain of rice, like little tiny things, and they correlate not only to gender but also sometimes to sexuality. So it's like I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but I remember talking about one that was, it's larger in women than it is in men. But it's even larger, or no, rather, sorry, it's larger in men than it is in women, but it's even larger in homosexual men than it is in heterosexual men. So like we kind of see this like this weird gradient there. And a lot of times I think people hear that and they think, oh, okay, so there's a boy brain and a girl brain, and you can have this boy brain locked. It's like a little bit more nuanced than that. little details.
And also, when you're talking about like averages of looking at hundreds or thousands of brains, not every man's brain is going to have that larger region, and not every gay man's brain is going to have that largest region, right? These are averages, and people vary, and that's what we see is a nice normal curve, and
Right, and that's the damned old misery of it, is that we have this normal distribution, and we're picking one weird little spot on the normal distribution. We're like, that's what man is right there.
Right.
And it just all this other thing, just ignore that. Be this one. This is what it really should be. How is that science? It doesn't work that way.
Right. No, it doesn't.
Oh, man.
I wish it did, because it would make studying people much easier if there were like one thing, but no.
Right. Oh my God, this is way off topic, but like I recently was doing a response video to this guy who was saying that like there are sulfuric bridges in our DNA that have a pattern that spell out Yahweh, and that's it, name of God in our DNA and all this shit. And I was like, okay, so first of all, literally 0% of that is true. But also, how dope would it be if that was real? That would make genetics so much easier. The gene is located after the 15th Yahweh. That would be way easier than what it is right now.
Right. Oh, God, I wish.
If human bodies work the way that transphobes thinks they do, it would just be phenomenally more simple. Phenomenally more. Archaeology would be more simple. Biology would be more simple. It'd be great.
I do wish my science were easier. Anything to simplify it would be great. So if we could find that genetic marker, that'd be awesome.
Right. Your work's cut out for you, transphobes. We're all waiting. We would love the break. We've got a couple more calls next. Are you ready to keep going?
I am ready.
Sick. All right, so we've got I love this question. I'm going to take this person immediately. We've got Elma, pronouns she, her, calling in from Mexico. Let's talk about your experience as a content creator, Roxanne. Elma, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
Let's
Good. Thank you so much.
So I'm not going to read your question. I would like you to please present it because I love what you're asking and I can't wait to see Roxanne's face.
Oh, okay. As a creator, as a content creator, how do you perceive the hate that you are getting online? Do you think that is worse, or it is the same as men when it comes to the subjects that you are portraying online?
I have
Tell us,
so many
Roxanne.
feelings. I have so many feelings about this. So let me just like compose myself.
By all means.
So I started posting on TikTok. It was probably about 2 years ago. It was when I posted, really even before I decided that I was going to do science communication, I posted about my Ho Never Gets Cold study, which I didn't even know. Like, I think I had like 1,000 TikTok followers. And I covered the article where we looked at how living in an objectifying culture actually kind of impacts women's not only their like sense of self, which is self-objectification, the way that we internalize this patriarchal perspective on us, but that it actually impacts and impairs our physiological responses to situations. So we found that in kind of a natural setting out at bars and clubs, women who were dressed in very little clothing on very cold nights reported not feeling very cold. So we brought in the Cardi B quote, "A hoe never gets cold," to talk about how self-objectification impairs women's ability to recognize physiological sensations. So after that study went, it didn't go viral on TikTok, but it went viral like on every other platform. And like I was on BBC. It was crazy. Like whole time. I had no idea that like people even liked hearing about science on TikTok. So I was like, you know what? I will make this my thing. I'll start covering my research and other people's research and it'll be great. Very quickly became clear that it wasn't great. The like first other big study that I covered came from my co-advisor's lab. It was a paper called Precarious Manhood, which is a theory to understand how masculinity is kind of structured in a way that's different than womanhood. And so men kind of have to constantly prove their manhood to other men. And this constant need to assert your manhood causes anxiety in men. And one means of quelling that anxiety is engaging in physical aggression. So it was a series of studies where they tested this hypothesis over and over and kind of showing how precarious manhood manifests in men. And I covered that on TikTok and it got taken down as hate speech. And it was my first ever violation on TikTok. And it was like these men in the comments, I remember they were so angry. They were like, why does a woman think that she can talk about men? Why do these women always get it wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm covering peer-reviewed science. And not only is it peer-reviewed science, but it's coming from my advisor's lab. Like, I know this study way better than most social psychologists. So that hate speech violation was really interesting because I've seen other people and men too cover that research, and it's always like women being like, wow, it's so nice to see a man like acknowledging these things, or like men listening to them, and I'm like, oh, but I did that and you hated it. You literally called it hate speech. So kind of like since that video, I've been making more content, so I'm seeing more backlash, but it comes on every video I make, whether it's about research, whether it's men telling me that there's no need to study women's issues, that there's no need for, International Women's Day, that there's no need for Women's History Month, that I need to shave my armpit hair. Like anything I post, the men flock. And I do follow like a handful, I would say, of content creators who are men who cover gender issues. And it is always super interesting to see the way that their takes are perceived. And I actually there was a video by Professor Neil. I don't know if you're mutuals with him. I love his content. He's great. yeah, he's great. He just like stitched a video of mine where I was talking about ambivalent sexism. And so it was like me the first, 15 seconds and then him, and all the comments were like, "Thank you for teaching me about this. This is so insightful." Meanwhile, my comment section on the original video that he stitched was like, "Women will call anything sexism." And just like no one believing me, even though it's what I study. Like it's what my PhD is in. So I guess to answer your question, yes, I've noticed that I get a lot of hate regardless of what I do. I do personally think that women get it more than men, especially when you're talking about issues of gender. But I also try to like think, am I just kind of biased and maybe I'm just seeking out like the positive comments on men's videos, like noticing them more, or maybe the negative ones are taken down or filtered out, so maybe they get it as bad as me. But then I'm also like, no, I do know that research shows that women experience more online harassment and aren't taken as seriously, so maybe it is really a thing and not just me.
No, don't you know? You're just emotional, Roxanne. That's what it is. You just have to think, just get logical and get your emotions out of it.
I'm just so emotional. But yeah, it's and I'd say it comes like the harassment is not just like I get a lot that are like threats, but I also get a lot that are like disqualifying what I'm saying and disqualifying like my degrees and my credentials, which is definitely, I would say, harassment, but in like a more like subtle way, I guess. Like you're not straight up telling me I'm ugly or stupid, but you are like implying that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
For no reason.
There's something that I have noticed too. Example, when I see like a clip of Forrest, where you are explaining something about atheism or something, when somebody comes from the theist side, they try to attack you on the content of what you are saying.
Yeah.
But usually when I see a clip of like somebody like Roxanne, I see mostly like comments that, "Oh, you're stupid, you're this, you don't know what you're talking about, you're fat," and stuff like that. So I was thinking that I have seen like the type of hate that each side gets, even though we're kind of like talking of the same thing, is very different.
Yeah, and I'm glad that people notice that and that it's not just me feeling like it's really targeted. But it's also so interesting because it intersects so well with the stuff that I study. So I'm always like, this will make a great video for me to talk about why this man commented on my appearance when I sounded very smart. So yeah, it's fun. I love it. It actually, I mean, I've had to almost completely shift the type of content that I've been making on TikTok because every video without fail either gets a violation or TikTok pushes it to the wrong side and it's just a bunch of angry dudes, or it's just people, I guess, also like not believing that psychology is like a real science and questioning every single thing that I'm saying. And so I just have kind of stopped that because it's a lot.
You're a psychologist, right?
Yeah, my PhD is in social psychology.
It is fascinating that how they are like putting in question your credentials, and then we have somebody like Jordan Peterson saying the most stupid thing ever, and nobody questions.
I think that you and I would be. I think that we would be great friends because I made a video like about Jordan Peterson. It was that, Forrest, remember that trending sound that was like, my Birkin, another Birkin. But what makes these two Birkins different? Do you remember that sound?
No, but it sounds great.
We're just on different sides of TikTok. It was like people talking about like two things that are like similar, but like people have starkly different opinions about. And I was like, one social scientist, another social scientist was like Jordan Peterson and me. But what makes men trust this one and not this one?
I love the meme going around on Twitter of some freaking idiot put a picture of it was oh god, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or something is out here making a bunch of anti-vax claims, and there's an actual fucking medical doctor who's like, hey, you're not saying things properly, and people are putting pictures of this medical doctor who looks like a normal human being, and then RFK all freaking jacked as shit is like, who are you taking your medical advice from? And now there's people like putting out there like, with RFK jacked as shit, or like Hulk Hogan next to Stephen Hawking, and it's like, who are you going to take physics advice from? Look at how beefy this guy is.
Oh, pain.
So
painful. Pain.
And like, this is something like I, even as a man, if I'm paying attention, I can see it from my side as well. It takes that extra step of paying attention. One of the earliest videos I ever did, it was one of the first videos I ever did that went viral. There's a Kavatica over on TikTok, Charlotte, and she used to do a lot of science content. And someone, I forgot what started it, but she was explaining that venom and poison are different things, and that you can drink venom and it won't hurt you unless you have an ulcer or something, and you're some way of getting in your body. And all these dudes in her comment were just like, this stupid woman doesn't know what she's talking about, all this stuff. And she made a video saying, like, is there a biologist out there that can, confirm this? And that was my cue. And I came and I was like, hey, everything she just said is right. And you could have just fucking Googled it rather than waiting for me to come confirm it. And like that. And there's so many times where I see like Chemical Kim. She's another one. She's a PhD chemist, and she was doing she's way more famous than I am. And she was doing a video about the Leidenfrost effect. She was pouring liquid nitrogen on her hand to show that she won't be hurt as long as it's a little bit. And someone tagged me in there and said, is this true? And I'm like, there's someone way smarter than me showing you that it's true. Why are you asking me? There's several women that have complained every time they say anything about science, someone tags in Hank Green. And Hank Green has come out and said, quit fucking doing this. I'm just a dude. If I don't know, they're telling you.
How about we believe women when they say that they're qualified to do things, because we never question men. Ever.
Right, that's the thing. Everyone assumes Hank Green has PhDs in every possible field. The man's very smart. He's got a master's in environmental science. He's great. But people come to him with questions about physics, with questions about chemistry, with questions about everything. And they do the same to me. I know the feeling because I get questions all the time about shit that I'm not. I get questions about chemistry all the time. I get questions about physics all the time. I get questions about other planets all the time. And I'm like, I'm a biologist. I'm happy to help, but like, I can't help that much. But it's not nearly as bad for us being asked a million questions as for you speaking about what you do have an expertise in, and they ask me to clarify.
Or then they question every single aspect of what I've said, except for like the cool thing that I'm talking about. They're like, well, you can't measure emotions. And I'm like, okay, let's just think about the fact that this is a peer-reviewed scientific article using a validated scale that's been used in hundreds of papers. And if you have an issue with that, go back to the original paper, but maybe just take what I'm saying as it is, and then, like, is this not cool? Like, do you not think this is cool? Why are you so hung up on everything else? Like,
It is deeply annoying.
You
and
are
like,
being too emotional.
It's crazy. And there are so many times where I know for sure if I made the exact same video that Roxanne made, it would be received completely differently.
100%.
Yeah. And like, it's clear enough for me to see it without having to look too hard. So I can't imagine, being on the receiving end of that bullshit. And I can't fucking fathom the men out there who pretend like that isn't happening. Like, you turn a blind eye. How are you not noticing that?
Right. Yeah. And what I do too is now I screenshot every obnoxious comment that I get before I block the person, because then I make videos where I'm like, look, here it is, like the evidence. And then people are still like, that's only 10 men. And I'm like, how many does it need to be on a video with only 15 comments? Like,
you here saying it's not significant enough. You're part of the pile.
Exactly. It's
one of my favorite things that I think is really important is I don't know if this has been done with trans women, or at least I haven't seen any articles about it, but I have seen a significant amount of articles about trans men where they talk about how as soon as their voice started getting deeper, they started growing facial hair, whatever, people started listening to them more and
Yes.
taking them at their word more often and believing them more often and like just treating them with more respect. And they were like, this is so much easier to just be a person all the time. It's so much easier. As soon as you start to pass as a man, like people just treat you like a human being all of a sudden. And they'll talk about it and they're like, no one stared at me today and nobody questioned me today. What is this world? It's so weird.
Yeah, wild. I can't imagine.
Anyway, Alma, did this answer your question? Would you like us to go further?
Yes. No, that's fine. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Wow, so fun. I love thinking about all of that. So good. So good. Yeah, it happened. I made a post about, why we have a Women's History Month and why proactively what to do when people say, why don't we need Men's History Month? And I'm like, these are the things that you can bring up when people inevitably ask that. Somehow that video got pushed so far to misogyny talk because every single comment was like, women would have had to actually do something to, be recognized because men have done everything in the history of forever, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And it got no views and just like thousands of comments from these angry men. And a mutual of mine replied to one of their comments and was like, women didn't do anything. Here's like 10 women that did very important things. And his video got like 1 million views. Mine had like 2,000. And I'm like, this is why we celebrate women, because their work gets pushed down, men's gets lifted up, and there you go. You see their shit. You don't see women's shit. That's why we need to highlight it.
It's why, so my master's is in bioanthropology, and I did a lot of archaeological theory as a part of that. And it's just different ways. I love the way that it was described to me, that the word theory in science is putting facts in order. We know these things. If I arrange them this way, what does it mean? And if I arrange them that way, what does it mean? And which one seems most parsimonious with reality? And so with archaeological theory, we're talking about people, lived, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years ago, different species of humans. What facts do we know and what order do we put them in and what comes out? And we came to the topic of feminist theory. And what blew me away the most about and feminist theory and archaeology really boils down to the radical idea that women have been here the whole time and they've done things. And like that, what blew me away the most about it was just how recent of an idea that was. Like, this is shit that like was a controversial new topic in the late 80s. And like still today is a thing that you might get a little extra grant funding if you put it in your paper because it's so radical and so new. And it's like, how is that the case? And we read this one paper. I can't remember the name. I think it was called like Gray Stuff and Brown Stuff or something. It was talking about this idea of just like the facts on the ground and taking nothing more. And they took over. There's this archaeologist named Binford. And if you've ever known anything ever about biology, you've read 15 Binford papers. And he's talking about, the men go out and hunt and the women go out and gather and the men drag the thing back and all. And they basically just went back and did a review of this massive body of literature that's been influential in biology for decades. And they're like, there's no evidence for any of this shit.
That's like the recent stuff that's been coming out, right? Because I keep seeing headlines about like not disproving, but like what you've heard about women being hunter, or gatherers and men hunting is totally wrong. I'm not surprised.
No, it comes down. What's happening is we're going out into these cultures that are still around today, some of them, and we're just checking. And they're like, we have no idea what you guys have been talking about. Well, you keep saying weird shit. We don't know what you're saying. Or we'll go back and look at, like, we'll find graves where there's this skeleton in it, which appears to have female characteristics, but they're surrounded by weapons and horses. So we're like, okay, well, it's just a man with some big ass hips.
Right.
And it's like, no, bro, like, look again. And like we'll go back and do this again and again. And we find over and over and over that there's tremendous amounts of evidence of women hunting, of women leading, of women doing great, amazing things in different cultures in different ways. And what it boils down to, when we look back over the history of this discipline, the beginning of anthropology was founded by literally Victorian men with literally Victorian ideals. And they would go out into these communities and they'd say, "You man, how do you run this village?" And the guy would be like, "Oh, well, actually, she runs everything." And they'd be like, "Don't be stupid.
No.
How do you run the village?" And
tell me for real. Yeah, and it's like just, I guess, like imposing your gendered beliefs onto what you think everything else should be. And this, I don't even know if this is like entirely relevant, but I read some papers recently and then covered it about how like our idea of the egg and the sperm is not, and how they operate in tandem is not how we've been taught it in textbooks, where you kind of learn that like the egg waits patiently and then the sperm all fight to get it, when actually the egg is doing yes, and how that is just gender roles, gender norms of men being super active and women being passive imposed on this biological process, when in reality the egg is doing a lot to help transport the sperm along and like create an environment that is like hospitable.
The egg also does the choosing of like which sperm, because several sperm get there. It's not the first one. It's a lot at the same time. The acrosome reaction is largely dictated by what's going on in the oh god, I'm gonna forget the damn name of it. It starts with a P and it's the layer on the outside. Somebody will correct me and call me stupid, but like the egg is an active role. And even when we talk about sexual intercourse at all, what do we talk about? We talk about penetration. Why are we assuming that role in what we're talking? Why don't we talk about engulfing? You know what I mean? Why isn't that the language that we use? Why is it always getting?
If it's not men being super active and aggressive and women being very passive and submissive, it doesn't align with our worldview, and then we don't want it.
Exactly, and like that's what it really comes down to. It's just like with religious scholars going out and over the course of history, as archaeologists would go out and destroy things that were sacrilegious to them. They would destroy artifacts that went against Christianity. They would destroy artifacts that went against patriarchy. They would destroy artifacts that went against heteronormativity. There's tremendous amounts of evidence for this happening. And so there's lost information because fragile ass men couldn't handle the truth and decided they're not only going to teach it differently, they're going to destroy the things that are proving them wrong. And now we're going back into 2020s.
It's precarious manhood theory. When their masculinity is threatened, they are aggressive.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I'll show you how tough I am. I'll show you, that's one thing that we come up when we talk about gender ideology, as people like to put it. So much is people a lot of times like to pretend like, oh, this is a new thing, and I always like to bring up this map of diverse cultures, gender diverse cultures, cultures with more than two genders, with differences of what gender roles are. I talk about ancient gender roles and how they're different from today, and I always like to just ask, like, what's honestly more reasonable to you? Is it more reasonable to say that one culture has steamrolled over everybody else and committed genocide against everybody that doesn't agree with them, which is what the historical record shows us? Or is it just more reasonable to say that all these other people were all just liberals and this is the only one that got it right? And all these other people, all these other cultures, they all had blue hair and none of them shaved their armpits. And now we have this one right way of doing things. It makes no damn sense to me, man. It's crazy how people can't decentralize themselves from that. We have a fuck of calls.
Okay. Yeah, we've been just rambling.
So full. Okay. No, I love it, and feel free to continue doing so. Like I said before the call, we can be here all night if you'd like. So we have a bunch of people that have already called in and been waiting for a long time. We have more people that are waiting for longer, but I want to take a couple here that I think will be interesting. We've got, I think I'm saying this right, is it Paco? Pronouns he, him in Canada, wants to talk about traditional manhood. Is it Paco? Am I saying that correctly? You're on the line. Can you hear us? And we're going to give you like 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm still not hearing anything, so we're going to go and move on. I'm sorry. That was such a fun... The call screener said, is a traditional man such an undesirable thing, being strong and manly and protective, etc. And, like, I would have loved to talk about that.
I love the way that's
because we didn't
phrased.
get a chance. That was how we put it in the call screen. So, like, since we didn't get to it, do you want to spend, like, a quick minute? Is it...
Yeah.
How undesirable is it for you, Roxanne? Don't you just love a large, hairy, sweaty man with an axe and
I mean,
3 beards?
yes, but if he also is emotionally available and kind and doesn't like hurt me physically or emotionally, so yes, I would love a big, strong lumberjack who is nice.
It is. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating and sad to me that you're talking about emotional availability, and it's like, yeah, awesome, and then you immediately went to that won't hurt me as well.
Yes, because he has an axe and he's big and strong, and so he gets a little angry. And what does he do? I don't know.
What happens when you burn the roast?
What happens?
Yeah, that's honestly, what stands out to me about it is like that's something that my wife has said to me. She was saying, like, what attracted me to her to me, and she was like, you seem safe. That was one of the first things she said about me, and I was like, that should not be as huge of a compliment as it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
The bar is pretty low. I would say also to Paco's question, I would also, like, I'm not...
He just called back, by the way. We can try to get him back on.
Sure, let's
see.
Do it.
Yeah, let's try it one more time. Can you hear me now?
Hello? Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Hey, there you are.
Finally,
okay, cool.
Yes.
We'll let Roxanne finish what she was saying really quick, and then we'll jump back in. Also, I'm hearing myself in the background. If you have a stream playing, please turn it off.
I actually turned off everything. Let me see. I'll even turn off the TV. So, okay.
Do you have me on speakerphone?
Can you hear yourself again? Can you still hear yourself?
Not usually. Thank you so much, by the way, Chris S. Zona Pellucida. That's what I was looking for. Do you have me on speakerphone? Because I'm still hearing an echo.
Nope. I do have you on my earbuds, though.
Okay. Well, we'll
take those
see
off,
if it continues.
probably.
Yeah, please do, because there's a weird echo going on. And yes, it is the zona pellucida. That's the outer surface of the egg where that acrosome reaction happens. I knew it had a P in there somewhere. I just could not remember. Somewhere. Yeah, I was thinking pia, because like you have the cranial or your meninges that wrap around your central nervous system, and the middle one is called the pia mater because pia means like delicate, and like that's what I was thinking about. Is like this thin little layers. It's not that, is it? Oh, so dumb.
No, it's a much longer word.
Yep. Hey, what were you saying before we jumped on?
I was saying, to the point, I forget exactly how the question was phrased, like, is this so undesirable? And I said, no, if it's coupled with basically feeling safe, kind of like you said. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
Every woman is different. Every person is different. I'm not typically drawn to, like, a physical type of person. I'm more drawn to a personality type or an emotional type, and whether that comes in a guy that's super tall and super buff and has an axe, or like a scrawny little indie boy who I have dated a lot of in the past.
A smaller axe.
I would love if he had a little tiny axe. For me, it's not, it doesn't matter. But I think the question is more of like, is masculinity unattractive? And I would say that masculinity is a lot of things. And there are aspects of masculinity that are really great, like strength and assertiveness. Those can be really nice traits to have, but when they aren't coupled with also warmth and compassion, that's when we start to get a little toxic, I would say. And if, there's the only traits that you have, and you don't have balance with other traits. So that's my answer to that, I would say.
Yeah. Did you have something specific that you wanted to poke on that like we haven't talked about yet? Hello? Don't tell me we lost you again. Come on.
Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Oh, he's back. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me, Forrest? Perfect.
Yes. Yeah, we're good. So yeah, what
Not
were you
really.
wanting to touch on that we if we haven't touched it yet?
Well, first of all, well, it was not regarding attractiveness of male characteristics or masculinity or traditional masculinity or anything. It was mostly regarding the, well, I have to explain something before I get into that because I don't want to contaminate the well, you know? Like, if
Sure,
I
sure.
say something that might, yeah. So first of all, I'm a male, so a biological male. So I might be biased
Cisgendered.
by this. Yeah, well, I am biased. I for sure. And also, well, I do support gender equality. I do believe that gender is a social construct, and we can create as many genders as we want, depending on each society. Many societies have different genders beyond just male and female, or your pardon, men and women, because okay, for me those are two different words. And what I see currently, the discourse that I'm being fed regularly is that males are masculine traits are undesirable. We're toxic. We are like the root of all evil. Like that's the way I feel what's being put out there, right? Not precisely that I agree with that or that I think that the feminists do portray that exact thing, but that's what I'm being told, right? That's what I see on the media. That's what I see on TV. That being a male is now being it's bad, it's wrong, right? Like you don't have to be the traditional man that it's strong, that it's emotionally strong or independent, and the courage and all that stuff that I actually believe women should be taught as well, not just little boys. I do believe that little girls should be taught how to be strong leaders, how to be assertive, and all that stuff, right? So, I first I would like to know if what's the reality about the feminist theory, or what is your position regarding to that, Roxanne? Like, do you think men have to change, and in what regard, or what masculine traits would you say are harmful for society?
Mm-hmm.
This is a great question, and I talk about this a lot on my platforms. So I'm gonna kind of approach this from a social psychological perspective, which I think is kind of where a lot of the discussion on toxic masculinity comes from too. When we talk about
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just letting you guys know, Paco, I've muted you for a second just because I'm still getting some feedback. So rather than sort it out, just have you on mute for a minute. You're still on the line. I'll bring you back after we're done talking, just so you know. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
No, you're good. So, okay. I think something that gets conflated is when people hear something like toxic masculinity, they think they're hearing toxic men, where masculinity, just like femininity, refer to traits and attributes that anyone can possess, right? Masculinity, typical masculine traits are things like aggression, strength, competitiveness, things like that. Typical feminine traits are things like warmth and caregiving. And men and women can both have masculine and feminine traits. And so when we talk about toxic masculinity, what we mean is possession of masculine traits in an excess to which they begin to harm that person or others. So having an excess of aggression with no outlet for it, or the outlet becomes yourself or it becomes someone else. In the same regard, toxic femininity would be an excess of feminine traits in a way that hurts the self or others. But really what happens when you have too much submission or too much caregiving is you just become a stay-at-home traditional wife. Like it doesn't lead to like violence. So when we talk, like I said, toxic masculinity is kind of these masculine, typically ascribed masculine traits, right? Like socially constructed masculinity in an excessive amount that, with nowhere else to go, might lead to aggression or physical violence or whatever. So I don't think it's so much that like being a man is bad, but I do think to your question of like, do men have to change? I don't think they have to get rid of those masculine traits. I don't think they have to stop being strong and assertive and dominant, but I do think that they have to learn to bring in other complementary traits that make them a good partner, and being able to give women or whoever they're dating, emotional, like reciprocation and love and affection, because so much of masculine stereotypes teach men that they shouldn't cry, they shouldn't show emotion, they shouldn't talk about their feelings. But that's what people want in a relationship, is to feel seen and heard and understood, and to also understand their partner. So if you're just having these, stereotypically masculine traits with nothing to counterbalance them, then you don't seem like, at least to me, a very good, well-rounded partner who I would feel able to connect with.
Yeah, I think it's really important that like there's kind of this joke that goes around. Men will go to war before they go to therapy. We will do anything we can to assert our dominance and prove our masculinity and it's a lot of it is societal roles placed on us. Some of the language that you used, Paco, when you were calling in, you talked about being mentally strong. And I'm assuming, I'm not sure. I would ask you what you mean by that, but like, generally speaking, when I hear that kind of language, it means, boys don't cry kind of things. You know what I mean? That you have to be tough, and you have to be hard, and you have to be serious. And like, that's what you're talking about there, is just causing emotional trauma to a person. And as someone who grew up in that, I get it. You are taught to suppress your emotion. You're taught to suppress your personality. You're taught to be something that you're not. And that's a lot worse than the suffering that you endure from just being yourself and being open, in my opinion. That's why I'm so fucking weird. And so like, it is really difficult when we talk about these things, because a lot of the times the argument that, like Roxanne just said, certain characteristics at an extreme level are damaging to society gets mixed up with all men are evil. And it doesn't help, in all fairness, that people like me love to make jokes about things like, kill all men is kind of like this catchphrase, because that misses, people don't see the nuance of the fact that you're so shocked by the words kill all men is because like we're kind of poking fun at this whole patriarchal system. When we say all men are terrible, we're poking fun at this fucked up system. Of course it's not all men, every single man. But if you're one of the men out here saying it's not all men, it's probably you, because like you're having this visceral reaction to us making fun of a broad, of the gender that you are benefiting from being a part of. It's kind of weird, man. As for me, I can definitely see from the inside here of the masculine arena, whatever the fuck masculinity means. I can definitely see the impact that it has on me and those around me when compassion, caring, the ability to just be emotionally available to your friends, talking to them, giving a hug when it's necessary, sharing your emotions, allowing yourself to experience and feel and deal with your emotions in a healthy way. All of these things are put down and shunned. And what I feel like a lot of people, or a lot of men, don't think about is the fact that these things, they do hurt everyone, but they hurt us first. This toxic masculine culture of, beating your chest and showing you're the strongest and the toughest and the bravest and not taking no for an answer and all these things, that damages you as a person. It damages the other men around you. And then what do those damaged men do? They rape and kill women. And so like, you are hurting us so that all we know how to do is go hurt other people, because we don't know how to do anything else. It's a cancer.
It's also so interesting to me because from my perspective and from like theoretical perspectives in psychology, so much of these masculine displays of toughness and of aggression are not to attract women. They are to demonstrate your ability to other men, right? So when men are like, isn't this attractive to you? Like, why don't women like this? Because it was never for us. It was never to impress us. It was always to climb the masculine ladder and demonstrate your ability in relation to other men, which maybe would get you a mate, like hundreds or thousands of years ago, but it's not to like make me feel good or to impress me.
It's very similar. What you're talking about there. It reminds me of like when men say, well, why aren't you wearing makeup today? It's like, because I'm not doing it for you. Or why didn't you dress? The way that men, you as a woman on the internet surely have experienced this, when men are offended that you're not attractive to them, like you did something wrong to them. It's like,
no, thank God,
I'm not here for you, dude.
Right?
It's insane. By the way, we were just talking about phrases like "kill all men" and things like that. And someone in the chat here, Logan Fisher, made a great comparison. It's like saying ACAB. Of course, there are nice police officers out there. They're part of a system that's fucked up. Of course, there are great men out there. They're part of a culture that's fucked up. And so it's worth drawing attention to. Anyway, I'm going to bring you back on, Paco, so we can hear what you have to say. Did we answer your questions? Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, yes, I definitely want to add something there. But yes, I agree. I totally agree with the both of you. And I wish that was the message that is being spread, because it doesn't feel that way. It mostly feels like being a white, cis, heterosexual man, it's the worst thing you can be right now, right? Mm-hmm. It's not. I know that level of extremism is not what we're after, right? It's obviously not. But it's not what is being like portrayed, like what is being shown on social media, and what some people, I don't know, I don't want to call people like right or left, or because I don't believe in that level of polarization and that kind of stuff. But there are people that are totally against that.
But there are assholes on every side of the political and social spectrum. And so, oh my God, hold on, I'm just going to mute that for a second. There are assholes on every side of the social and political spectrum. And it sounds like when you're saying, what you're hearing in the media is that all men are terrible and being a normal man is the worst thing. It sounds like those are some people who are embroiled in that same patriarchy, who are hearing men need to do better as all men are evil, and using that reactionary take to try to garner attention.
That's what I was going to ask, is kind of where do you feel this perspective is being pushed from? Like, who do you think is perpetuating that message, and why? Is there a reason that it's being spun as to men are being disenfranchised and hated on and, becoming the minority?
I see a lot of that in social media, like Instagram, for instance, Instagram Reels, Facebook. People commenting on Facebook, a lot of people that have a mixed message regarding trans people and feminism, and put everything together. They're actually putting everything together, like atheism, feminism, gender equality, transgenderism, and they're putting everything together in the blender and saying, okay, that's you, like creating a label and attacking that label, right? And they are, because
that's a lot easier than thinking.
Yeah. And I don't feel like we're doing enough to counter that. Like, definitely we have to do something. I try to do this within my family or friends, and my wife and I actually believe in equality, but not like, usually we are being told that men should be more feminine. Like, we should learn, like you said, Forrest, we should speak more openly about our emotions, how we feel. Don't try to be tough in every situation. Don't risk like getting killed to prove you're tough, right? Yeah, that's something that's good, and I actually agree with that. But also, I think
even the language that you just used, I think, is really important. You said that this is making men more feminine, or that we're encouraged to be more feminine. Why are those feminine traits? Why aren't those just good, healthy human traits? Everybody should do those things.
Yeah, I agree. As Roxanne said, as Roxanne mentioned, those are seen traditionally as some feminine traits, like taking care of others, being more emotional. Those are traditionally seen as feminine traits, right? And even if that's just socially constructed, I do believe that men should acquire some of that. And I also believe that women should acquire some of the masculine traits that are, the traditionally masculine traits that are being attributed to men, right? Like being more emotionally intelligent, Not that I think that men are emotionally intelligent, right? But we are taught to control our emotions, right? Like you have
Control
to
or suppress?
No, control. Suppress is well. I do think that wrongly a lot of parents are teaching their sons, their children, their male children, to suppress their emotions. That's wrong. But controlling your emotions, being able to act rationally, like even if you are feeling anger, or being assertive, being able to act more rationally and not emotionally. Like, don't explode in anger when you're being told that you are wrong or something like that. That's something
So,
that
Paco,
is expected.
We're having some consistent audio issues, but you said quite a bit of things here that I would like to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and end the call, but I'm going to talk about everything you're saying. So I just want to thank you so much for calling in, and we're gonna drop the call, but we're gonna talk about it. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sure. It's okay.
All right. Take care. Because you said a lot of stuff there at the very end that I don't think that Paco means any harm by what he's saying, but there's the language that he's using there. I don't think he even heard some of the internalized issues there. So, like, what did you hear, and what would you like to pick at? Because I think it's really important.
I just want to know if he thinks that women don't control their emotions, or if we aren't taught to control our emotions, because I was controlling my emotions on that call, and I control my emotions every time men come into my comment section and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And women are expected to act very calm, cool, and collected, or we are deemed over emotional or told that we're on our period. So I don't think that that's like a great example of how men and women are different, because we definitely control our emotions.
Right, and that's the thing, is that like I said, I don't think the Paco's a bad guy. I don't think he was trying. I don't think he meant anything by that. I think the way he perceives it is that our suppression of emotion, and the way that we are taught to be stoic and be an island, be a rock, and don't let anything get to you. And if someone insults you, you have to just let it go, is set in contrast to a woman just being this fleeting, flightly, kind of, I faint at the sight of blood, kind of, and like this is almost caricature, not taking into account. You talked about being on your period. If you are speaking out, if you are making a point, you're on your time of the month. When if you're actually on your time of the month, you have to be even tougher, because you're cramping as fuck, and you have to go out and be a person. And so, like, it's very weird to hear that kind of language.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like very, I guess, like that's kind of like a normal conversation. Whenever I try to have these conversations with people, that's kind of how it goes. It gets very cyclical, and yeah. And I do like when he says, this is what I'm seeing in the media. He's talking about seeing it on Instagram. I don't see any content like that on Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. That's very clearly his algorithm showing him that. And that's a whole other conversation of how social media and algorithms can put you into an echo chamber where you think that this is a shared ideal among everyone around you, and really it's just what you're seeing.
Reinforcing stereotypes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
that's so huge. And I think it's also, it's a matter of, like, he had mentioned, that he thinks it's important, that he agrees that it's important that men take on some feminine characteristics, and his examples of that were, being emotionally available, being able to express yourself better, things like that. Things that, like I pointed out, those aren't feminine characteristics; those are healthy characteristics. Right. And then he also pointed out, like, well, but also women should do some manly things, like being more assertive. Well, maybe look into the myriad of studies where men, if I can't remember the exact numbers, but I remember there was a study not too long, a little while back, real famous one, where they put a bunch of men and women in a room and had them have like a meeting, and they asked the men, how much did the women talk compared to you? And the men thought it was 50-50.
They consistently overestimate the amount that women speak in social situations.
Yes, they think
even when they speak less than men.
Really, exactly. It's like 20%. And they're like, we talk the same amount. It's like, no, You talked over them the whole time. I talk over everybody. So I just don't think I'm sexist.
Tons of psych research shows that when women do try to act assertive, when they do even things like wear pantsuits, they're seen as bossy, they're seen as bitchy, they're seen as like it's a lose-lose, right? We're told that we need to be more assertive, and then we are, and then we're told that we're a bitch.
Right. So. Right. That's another thing I should have brought up. I'm glad you did. Yes, the perception of bitchiness or bossiness when what you're doing is being honest or assertive or whatever like that. Yeah, it's a very different reaction you get. So fucking cool, dude. There's so much there, and that's why I think a lot of it, like, whenever I think about, we touched on, feminism being a multi-gendered experience and a multi-gendered benefit at the beginning of the thing. I think it's one thing that if anybody takes anything from this show today, if I had anything to give, it would be just to maybe take what you think of with masculinity and femininity, kind of put that in a bowl in front of you here, and take the label off and see what it actually looks like, and you might notice that it's unrecognizable. It doesn't without that label, it doesn't mean anything, and these are just traits that you value or disvalue independently, and you can just choose to do the good ones. You don't have to do the masculine ball.
I very quickly looked at the YouTube comments because I don't have it up, and I saw someone say something like, I've seen toxic masculinity reinforced in lesbian relationships. Exactly, because it's a pattern of behavior, it's a pattern of traits that anyone, man or woman, can have masculine or negative traits. And we could talk a whole lot about queer relationships and heteronormative standards that are imposed on, like, lesbian relationships. I don't know if we want to get into that, but because it's a pattern of behavior that really anyone can possess, that we've called masculine and feminine.
Yeah, so, exactly. It's crazy. It reminds, wasn't it, back in, back in the days of using arsenic face paint and big powdered wigs and things, and it was very masculine for a man to faint when he was overcome with emotion and in a very stressful situation. That was what men did. And it could you imagine today if that was, introduced as a norm? No. My God, the conservatives would lose their mind.
I wish it would be a norm, though. I would love to just be able to. I'm tapping out. Goodbye. Goodbye.
By the way, I do want to point out, just because I keep almost laughing at myself, my own stupid shit. I can't tell you how many times throughout this call I have wanted to interject to explain to you what feminism is, just to see the look on your face, just what your accent. I'm not gonna do it, but I wanted to so bad this whole time. It would be so fucking funny. Oh God.
My guess is that I would have I would have played along with the bit, but you never know. I may just end call.
Right, just you're done. The rest of the show on your own.
Fainting. I'm gonna tell.
We have several calls that people have some religious questions and whatnot, and I want to get to them. I really do, but I'm loving where we're at right now because I feel like this is something that we don't get to do very often in the show. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to take another call that's tangentially related.
Hey, Forrest,
and then we'll move on from there.
Before you take that call, would you want to maybe
Wild
put out
Arden
our Patreon in the next week of shows?
Yay, sure. That's part of my job, isn't it? Hey, did you know that we have a Patreon? It's a thing that you can join, and when you do that, we get to make more great content. Here's how it works: you sign up for Patreon and give us money, and then we make shows like this as well as special bonus content for that Patreon, and we put it out, and then you enjoy all of the things that we do. It's an amazing multi-step process, and you only have to be a part of the very first step, which is give us money. It really is that easy. We are currently working our way up to, I believe, wasn't it 700 patrons, if I remember right? And if we get to 700, then Matt will get a tattoo of this horrible looking cat that Seth Andrews drew. Can we get that picture on the screen? Do we have that available?
No, I definitely do not just have that available right now. I'm sorry.
Well, go back to when we did the Recovering from Religion fundraiser and go see it. Seth Andrews drew the greatest picture I've ever seen of his cat, and Matt will get it tattooed on his actual body. if we get up to, I believe it was 700 patrons is what Jimmy was saying last time we were talking. So go do that. It would be great. And then if we go past that, I think they're wanting to start doing some patron exclusive content of like reviewing Christian movies or something like that. There's a lot of fun to be had, but we need to be able to fund the fun. So please consider becoming a patron. And also we got other shows coming on this week. I don't know what they are because I don't have the schedule in front of me because I'm a bad host. But I know we got the Transatlantic Call-In Show where you can talk to real trans people about real trans issues. I know we've got the Hang Up coming up with Matt pretty soon. That'll be a thing you can tune into. I think that's on Wednesdays, probably. I believe we've got the Sunday show coming up on Sunday, which is the day, a week from yesterday. Tune into that. Something will be happening there. And then also come back and see me on some whatever other thing I'm doing. I just did Dying Out Loud, and I'll be back next month with more SkepTalk, probably. That's the best I got. Thank you so much. This is my real job, people. So with that, we will now jump into more calls because I've got a bunch of them. We've got people who've been waiting for a very long time with atheists and or religious questions, and I want to get to them. But before we do, I'm going to butcher this name. Viebhav. I'm going to say it that way, and I'm going to ask you to clarify. Calling in from India wants to talk about abortion. You're on the line. Did I pronounce your name properly? Is it Viebhav?
Pretty close, actually. Hi, Forrest. Hi, Roxanne.
Hi. I'm still going to say it wrong, but I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, it's fine. So I am an atheist. This is not my argument, but I spent about 3.5 hours last week, and I got stuck actually. So I'm going to play devil's advocate now, and I just want you to help me out with this argument.
Yeah.
Okay, so fetus is going to be a human, and that we in any other situation don't usually allow to kill humans. For example, if I put gun on your head and ask you to kill someone, and you do that, you will not be safe. You still have to face some legal stuff, right?
Sure.
You can't kill anyone in order to just protect your property. You can't do that to kill or protect your animal, even for your pet.
Right.
You can do that only in case someone is actively trying to attack you, trying to kill you, or your family or someone you know or someone in front of you, and then only you can legally kill someone and feel safe about it. So what is the situation where it's actually allowed? Why is it allowed to kill human babies, fetuses?
Yeah. So this is I've got a million things to say here. Do you want to start, Roxanne, or do you want me to jump into the tirade?
I would say just the way that you started this, where you said like a fetus becomes a baby. Okay, but it isn't. So it's not a human baby. And also, like, you could claim self-defense, like, this thing is going to hurt me. I don't want this thing. And if you can claim self-defense and kill someone who's going to attack you, then I will claim self-defense and get this baby out of me, get this fetus out of me. On top of all of the, I mean...
I agree. I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm sorry. So sorry.
No, you're good, Forrest. Whatever you... I mean, you start this one off.
Sure. So those are actually where I was going to start as well. Is you know, it's not a human baby. Therefore, the rest of the argument, don't worry about it. And also, you know, pregnancy is not a benign condition at all. This is something that's going to have lifelong implications for your body and could even kill you. That it's life threatening. It's serious. More than that, though, I would make a distinction that ending a pregnancy is not the same thing as killing a fetus. One may be the result of the other. You know, a fetus may die because the pregnancy is terminated, but that's not actually what you're doing. And for a lot of people, they conflate the two because, you know, like I said, you know, if you end the pregnancy, the fetus is probably going to die. But think about it as a person, right? Let's say we give this fetus all the same rights that I have. This fetus has all the rights to life. It's a complete autonomous person, has a social security number. It's in there curing cancer and writing poetry. It is a complete human being, right? Just like me. I have an O negative. My blood type is O positive. My mother's blood type is O positive. She is my birth mother. I came out of her looking just like this. And
just like that.
If I needed a blood transfusion right now, if I was going to die without O positive blood, I can't walk up to her with a needle and a hose, jab it in her arm, and start using her body to sustain my life. Even though she's my mother, even though her body is sustaining my life, even if her taking that hose out would kill me, she has the right to do that because she has autonomy over her body. So her making the decision to disconnect the blood hose in this bizarre fucking situation I've created here, her decision to do that does result in my death, but she's not killing me. She's taking control over her own body, and nobody would fault her for that. And so it's a similar thing when someone is living inside of your uterus, you have a choice of whether or not you're going to allow your body to be used in that way. Even if that decision results in the death of this person, you're not killing them. You are maintaining your rights, your bodily autonomy. And what I think is really important, I don't know how it is in India, but here in America, when you get a driver's license, you have to agree whether or not you're going to donate your organs after death. If I am an organ donor, which I am, by the way, if somebody needs a heart and I died recently nearby, they'll cut my heart out and give it to that person, and then that person gets to live. The difference is, if I don't consent to that before I die, it doesn't happen. If you need a heart to live and I'm dead and I didn't sign off on that, we're both dying now. It's over. So what you're saying when you say that a person with a uterus can't decide what happens with their pregnancy, you're saying that this person has less rights than a literal corpse that can decide that the corpse has already decided you don't get to use their body. So you're by playing into this argument that, you can't kill a person, therefore you can't kill a fetus. What you're saying is that you have extra rights before you're born, and you lose rights by being born, and then you gain more rights when you're dead. You have extra rights to use somebody's body when you're born. You have extra rights to protect your organs when you're dead. But while you're alive, it's free game and anybody can use your body. And that makes no fucking sense. So those are my responses to this argument that you...
It doesn't actually. I agree with you. That's almost my argument against that. But he's my boyfriend actually. My boyfriend said that in this situation, that lady isn't supposed to do anything. If she sits around, that baby will come out of her, because the process of abortion is actually to get rid of pregnancy, not to kill the fetus. I get that.
Yeah.
But doing that will most likely kill the fetus. So not doing anything would be better. And I don't agree with it, but what can I do?
Better for who?
I mean, it might be better. And who
it
knows that it won't result.
That fetus, but it's not good for that lady because she's gonna suffer her entire life, most probably, because she don't want that pregnancy. Psychological and mental stress is different.
And who even knows if it would be a successful pregnancy, or if it would, if there wouldn't be complications at birth? How do we know that it would be better? We don't.
Right. So that's the thing. It's who are we actually trying to protect here? Are we trying to protect every single unborn baby? Because then you're going to have a problem with the fact that most pregnancies are automatically terminated. Eggs get fertilized all the time and they get flushed out with your next period because they just weren't good enough. They weren't viable. They didn't attach properly. A million other things. Is that a cause for a funeral? People are going to be really upset about, if we're talking about cells with human DNA, I brush out a few thousand of those every morning when I brush my teeth. Why is that any different? Are we talking about unique human DNA? There are cancer labs studying human cancer right now that are growing human cancer cells. This is unique human DNA in living human tissue from humans that have died decades ago. And now there's hundreds of pounds of these cells that are growing all over the world. Is this person still alive and living in several countries at once and weighs several hundred pounds? Or can we say that a clump of unique human cells with unique DNA isn't necessarily a whole ass person? The fact of the matter is, when we get right down to it, what it actually comes down to is controlling the bodies of people with uteruses in order to increase population and to take away human rights. it never comes to a good logical place. I think when you follow human well-being and human rights, you come to abortion being a necessary option. Because otherwise, like you said, it might be good for this baby, but it's bad for the person carrying the baby. Physically, it's bad for them mentally. Assuming they survive, it's bad for them economically. They might be able to support this thing. Now this baby's growing up in a situation with someone who wasn't ready to be a mother, someone who wasn't financially stable and able to take care of them. This baby's growing up in poverty. This baby is growing up emotionally abused and neglected because they have a mother that wasn't ready to be a mother. This baby is growing up in a shitty situation with a terrible life that's probably going to repeat a cycle of abuse to the next generation along. It's not better for that baby at all. It's just making more life, and just more life isn't necessarily good life.
I agree with you. The problem is, I forgot the countering argument. My boyfriend and I speak ASL with each other, so he can't actually talk over phone, and he's not here anyways. So, is there any other way to, you guys have any process so he can directly communicate via chat or something?
So could you say it one more time? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Okay, so my boyfriend and I speak using ASL, sign language. It's a sign language. He temporarily he can't speak right now for next few months. So, is there any way that he can do this via chat or something with people who understand these things?
I don't know if we have, do we, Arden, do you know if we have like a Discord or anything like that people can go and do like chat discussions?
Yeah, there is a Discord. I don't think you actually even need to join the Patreon to join it. But I don't want to say that for sure because I only participate in the Discord in as much as organizing mods and call screeners. So yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, we should have a Discord thing associated with the line, and at the very least, we have a comment section under this video that I'm sure you can get started on. But I'll
Google it.
We'll ask our mods to share something if we have something. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for your call. I really appreciate you listening to us ramble.
Just one last thing. Thank you guys. Fuck you, Jimmy. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love that. Yeah, no, I think that we covered a lot of ground there, but really it seems like we're hitting on the same topic over and over. And I'm sure you for 6 years have been studying the same topic over and over. It's does the same argument work if you just take the uterus haver out of the equation? If you just say this person rather than this woman has XYZ situation, XYZ scenario, XYZ rights, are you going to make the same argument or not? And it's like, probably not,
Right.
Or are you going to get more upset when someone calls you a uterus haver?
Right. Yeah, we could have that conversation too. So fun. So good.
It's so frustrating, dude. Yeah. There's a lot there. Before we move on, did you have anything? Because I rambled for a long time on that call. Do you have anything in particular that you wanted to throw in? Cool.
Nope. You covered it. And living in Florida right now, any thought of abortion and discussion about abortion makes me want to peel my skin off. So
yeah, I did not know you were in Florida. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. F's in the chat.
Yeah. That's not good.
That's terrible. So we've got a few people left here, and we've got some that I don't think we are qualified to answer, but some that we surely are. We're going to go for Eric, pronouns he, him, right here from Oklahoma. Wants to ask if we have a standard, or says we should have a standard response to the question of what is a woman. What's going on?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear a lot of things. A lot of screaming. Are you okay? You there?
Sorry about that. I was outside.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
All right. So first and foremost,
thank you for waiting for so long. By the way, you've been on for over an hour.
Oh, it's not a problem. One of the things that I find most frustrating in current politics, and I know I'm bringing that up because of the feminist discussion. A standard response to what is a woman. Matt Walsh's famously, in my opinion, dumb question. And I think that it revolves around a lack of how science is educated to the populace en masse. One of the things that I enjoy about your content, specifically your video sex and sensibility that you brought up earlier, the point you were looking for, the part of the brain region that correlates to being smaller in females, larger in males, and even larger in gay males, that was the vasoactive intestinal polypeptide containing subnucleus of the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your VIPSEN.
Yep.
You also talk about the central subdivision of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis, your PSTC, and the sexually dimorphic nucleus of the preoptic area, and just having a list of these things to discuss with people and let them know that it's not one particular do or die thing that changes whether or not you are a straight male or a female or a trans person.
Right. That's the thing is, when we mentioned this earlier, Roxanne brought up that there's a lot of overlap in these areas as well. They are spectral. There's a lot of variation. And this is one of the things when we talk about sex and gender is that, like, just focusing on biological sex, it is a multivariate system. There's chromosomes, there's genes, there's hormones, there's neuroanatomy, there's all sorts of different things that all go into this. There's internal and external genitalia, there's secondary sexual, there's so many different pieces that go into this puzzle, and not a single one of them is solely determinate of this whole system, and not a single one of them has only two options. And it's the same thing with gender. Gender is this social construct, this societal expression, a reflection of your and your society's feelings towards your sex. It's something that cannot be boiled down to nor predicted by your biological sex. So, like, how can you sit here and say it's either this or that when it's something that is by definition variable from person to person, from culture to culture, from day to day?
Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah, it's man. When we talk about what a woman is, this is why people get really upset when we say it's a person who has this gender identity of a woman.
Right.
Because they think, oh, isn't that circular? But, like, what's a Christian?
Well,
it's a person who ascribes to Christianity.
I think it's so interesting if you try to... I think it's interesting if you try to think about it separate from sex. Because a lot of people are like, it's just your genitalia. It's just am born with these body parts, and so I am a woman. But if you think about, okay, if you have biological males and females together, and they're interacting, and there's no social world around them, how are they different? What we're ascribing to them being different, and like how they're differently navigating the world, is what is them doing their gender, right? How they're dressing, the jobs they're taking, the roles they're doing at home, how they're doing their nails. These aren't natural differences between us. It's something that has been a product of the social world that we're living in.
Yes, and I think it's important that as a group, more specifically speaking towards the leftists on this, because I am a leftist, I think it's important that we find a very common agreement or argument that we can make. And I'm going to use Forrest Valkai's. I love your sex and sensibility video, and I actually will eventually ask you if I can use it in some of my content, completely unedited, just so that way I can get your words out there to as many people as possible. But
feel free to clip anything of mine you ever want forever.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And I wanted to ask you, as a biological anthropologist, you are the perfect person to ask this question. Do you think as an entire species, humans could have... Well, sorry, this is going to be a tiered question. First and foremost, can humans become an entirely hermaphroditic species? Two, if thousands of years ago we hadn't been the oppressive monsters that we were and killed anybody that was different from us, I'm going to use white people, I'm white, but that goes into your discussion earlier about how there's been a dominant culture that has steamrolled the rest of the people and pushed them to the side as minorities, blah, blah, blah. Do you think if that hadn't happened, do you think there would be more trans people, more people that are hermaphroditic, for instance? Like, do you think we would have like true hermaphroditism as a possible sex in today's culture?
Okay, I'm happy to answer those questions. I'm just going to let you know we're getting like a ton of like scratchy noise and craziness from your mic, so I'm going to end the call and then I'm going to answer your question. Is that okay?
Sorry about that. Yes.
No, it's not your fault. Who knows what it is? We're just getting a lot of noise. But yeah, thank you so much for those questions. We will answer them now. Okay, so
Can you repeat
and
what
then
he said? Because I got like
yeah, it was so hard to hear, right? He was
Yeah.
asking, do you believe that it's possible for humans to evolve to be fully hermaphroditic animals? And then also, if, as I said earlier, we hadn't had one dominant culture that steamrolled all the other ones, would we see now more trans and intersex people being, fully out and open? The first thing that I want to point out is that, and Eric, I don't think you had realized this, but the term hermaphrodite is totally fine when we're talking about non-human animals. When we're talking about humans specifically, it's historically been used as a slur, so we tend to avoid it. Just generally go for a word like intersex. It's kind of a blanket term for people who fall within, outside of the sexual binary, where we have sort of intersexes. You know what I mean? People who have abnormal chromosome variations, for example, Klinefelter syndrome having XXY, Sawyer syndrome having XY but still having a female body, De La Chapelle syndrome where you have XX but still have a male body, and so on and so forth. So look for terms like that. Again, I don't think you said that to be any way. I'm just letting you know. You don't no reason to feel embarrassed about that. As far as having human beings evolve in that direction and become hermaphroditic animals, that would take a hell of a lot of time and effort evolutionarily. It's not something that I would say is reasonable to have happen because there isn't a selection pressure for it, especially at least not in the next couple million years. Like, it would take some time. The Y chromosome is shrinking and is seemingly on its way out, but that's not something that's going to cause a truly we could call it dioecious or a monoecious species. Monoecious and dioecious is usually used for plants more than animals, but whatever. That's something that isn't really going to bring us quite there in any particular time. We can see other animals where that has happened. For example, a lot of people like to bring up like whiptail lizards, the little lizards that live out in the American Southwest, and they are completely monoecious. There are only females, and yet there's still what you could call gender presentation, because the females, in order to reproduce, another female has to come along and do male sexual actions upon them. They have to climb upon them and wiggle about and gyrate all over the place, even though they don't have a penis to use. They act like they do, and that's what triggers the hormonal response that allows the bottom female to fertilize her own eggs and reproduce parthenogenically. Cool fucking shit, right? Anyway, in order to get us to a state like that, it take a significant amount of time. And it's just not something that we have selection pressure for, so it doesn't seem reasonable. As far as your second question, would we be seeing more and more of these people? I think that's, you don't have to think about that for more than 2 seconds. Absolutely. The most common thing we talk about is the history of left-handedness. You can look up how many people have been left-handed over the years, and you see there's this little, it's way down here, and then it dips, and then it shoots up, and then it plateaus. What happened? Was there some sort of left-handed virus that made more people left? No. For a long time, we treated left-handedness as a disorder. We called people sinful and evil and demonic when they did it. Then there was a public debate about it, and people started arguing about it. And then we saw the numbers dip because they were being oppressed about it, and it was being more controversial. And then all of a sudden, as it was accepted more and more, the numbers skyrocketed until they reached the level of the actual representation in the population, and then they plateaued. And now nobody cares if you're left-handed. It's just a thing that you are. Same thing that we see now today, where people are saying, oh, there's more and more cases of autism. Autism is on the rise. No, we changed the diagnostic criteria, and we increased awareness campaigns. We now know what it is and how to find it. And so we're seeing it and diagnosing it more often. There aren't more autistic There aren't more autistic people now than there were 50 years ago. We're just labeling them appropriately now. And it's the same thing with LGBTQ people. There aren't more gay people, more trans people, more bisexual people, whatever. The studies that we have on these things for the statistics of a population saying that we have around 4% of a gay population, these are studies that were done in the 90s, where you have a taboo sexual orientation being shared with strangers in lab coats.
And then you're asking them, hey, are you this thing that it's not really great to be. Are you? Tell us.
Yeah,
Tell
a
us.
stranger in a lab coat is coming up to you and asking you where you like to put your dick. You're not gonna get precise numbers. Now it's becoming more and more prevalent because it's becoming more and more accepted. So
It's actually increasing. I think I just saw a report that bisexuality is on the rise. So praise be to all my bi girlies. We are here.
And again, I don't think there are any more bisexual people now. I think we're just comfortable saying, yeah, fuck. I think everybody is a little bit.
And aware of what it is, and seeing people in the media who have these identities, and knowing that we're not just crazy and imagining it and something's wrong with us. I mean, and then you have to consider the whole, I think, is it like Two-Spirit folks who were, is that what they're called? Who were like wiped out by colonizers when they came and just eradicated any person who showed signs of gender non-conformity or non-binary tendencies.
There's a ton
we
of different cultures.
We got rid of them.
When you say the word two-spirit or twin spirit, there are a dozen different ways you can actually talk about trans people or non-binary people in various Native American cultures. They all have different words for it and different traditions around it. Twin spirit or two-spirit is just kind of like a blanket term that Indigenous people in the Americas use just generally. Excuse me. And I say that not to correct you, but to say even that diversity has within it a huge amount of diversity that we just ignore because, like you said, they were murdered. People talk about trans healthcare being this new exciting thing. In 1930, Magnus Hirschfeld in Germany had the first trans healthcare clinic and had a library of research about trans people, about sex, about gender, about sexuality, everything that we're learning about today. And guess what was the first place that the Nazis burned and murdered half of the workers in? It was that fucking place. They came for these trans kids first. They murdered trans people first. Just like Americans, we came here. Are you a man or a woman? I'm neither one. We didn't stop to ask questions. We murdered them because fascism destroys gender nonconformity because it's better to have conformity under fascism. So there's a lot there. And the question of are there going to be more and more of these people? No, there are always going to be the same amount of these people. We're just going to see them as they come out of their shells and express themselves and open themselves more. And as far as bi people are concerned, sorry, go for it.
I mean, maybe there will be more in a sense that people will feel more comfortable. I mean, maybe this is what you're saying, but testing it out. I heard someone say something what was it? What did they say? They were if you aren't questioning your gender identity, if you aren't questioning how people have been labeling you and boxing you into your life for your entire existence, why not? Why aren't you questioning if this is who you really feel like? And maybe there will be people, who just, like you said, there's more ability to explore that.
The thing is, sorry, I'm just typing this into the producer chat. There we go. I think that's really important is the fact that most people don't take the time to question these things about yourselves. It is entirely possible that you are 100% masculine and 100% straight, or 100% feminine and 100% gay, or anything but this is the extremes of this spectrum. Isn't it reasonable to think that maybe you're just a little bit towards the middle, or maybe somewhere towards in this fuzzy? Have you ever taken the time to actually ask yourself and check and explore your gender and explore your sexuality? Worst case scenario, you're the same. Nothing changed, and you're yeah, no, I'm definitely a straight guy. Yeah, no, I thought about it for a good solid 20 minutes. Looked at a dick, wasn't fond of it. Now here I am. It's whatever. You know what I mean? It's just that that's the worst possible thing that can happen. Maybe you'll learn something incredible about yourself, and you'll get to be happier and more fulfilled learning some stuff. Just as soon as it's not taboo, you can kind of figure out what you want to do with yourself. I don't know. I think that's super important. And I think, especially with when we talk about bisexuality, I make jokes about how everybody's a little bi, but it just honestly, there's actually studies on that shit about how because not a lot of people take time to consider the fact that sexual orientation is different than erotic orientation and romantic orientation. These are completely different components of your identity. And so, like, for those of you who are in the audience curious and scratching your head now, sexual orientation, and you're going to correct me, I'm sure, because you're studying this shit way harder than I am. So tell me if I get this wrong. This is a quiz for me now. Sexual orientation is specifically just sexual attraction. We usually use it as a blanket term for all of these three things, even though that isn't actually accurate. Romantic orientation is, as it sounds, more of a familial bond or romantic attraction, somebody who you want to be with and connect with, that you feel attached to. And then erotic orientation is, for lack of a better word, what you jerk off to but might not actually want in real life. And so you have these three things, these three different categories that we lump into sexual orientation all at once, when really they could not potentially synchronize with each other all the time. And you could have something that you're attracted to romantically but don't want to have sex with, or vice versa.
Yes, there's actually another grad student in my lab. She studies that. It's called having a discordant identity, when your sexual and your romantic attraction don't align. And it happens a lot more than you think. But a lot of people don't know that term. They don't know it exists. So they think, oh no, because I don't want to marry a woman, like I'm attracted to a woman sexually, I would totally have sex with a woman, but I can only see myself marrying a man, so I must not actually be attracted to women. Like, no.
Right.
I think you are.
You can do both.
I think you are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, man, and that's so important for people to think about, because like that's why you'll probably know this better than I do, but haven't there been like actual studies on this where they show that like that most straight people have homosexual fantasies, or at least bisexual fantasies or whatever, that they like play with, that they're embarrassed or something like that?
Yeah, no specific like citations come to mind, but I know I have also seen like summaries of research like that. So yeah.
If you haven't thought about it, fucking try it.
I was talking about this too with a friend recently who's also a social psychologist, and talking about the whole everyone's a little bi thing. And we were just talking about how like there's so much, first of all, like internalized homophobia that would prevent people from even considering that they might be a little fruity. Yeah. And then, especially with women, like it's fetishized for women to be with other women. It is almost always expected to exist for the male gaze. Like, I'm going to have a threesome with this girl so that my boyfriend can watch. Like, that's no. Right. So it's like, and so I feel like it's kind of hard for women to separate. And then there's women who are like, well, everyone's attracted to women. Of course I'm attracted to women. Like, but that doesn't make me gay. Yes, it does. Like, there's just, it's so like normalized for girls to experiment and to have that experimentation phase coupled with like the fetishization of it and the homophobia. It's just like very hard to navigate, to figure out like, holy shit, no wait, I do actually just like girls too.
I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is a paper, Sexuality Studies and Archaeology by, I believe it was Barbara Voss. Yes, Barbara L. Voss. I'm just going to put the link. This is not a good enough one. Hold on, let me hop over to Google Scholar and see if I can get a free PDF here. There it is. Okay. Yep, there you go. All right, I'm going to put this in the chat. This is an amazing paper. Oh, fuck, it's not going to let me do that. Can I shorten this URL while I'm talking? And I'm going to try to shorten this URL. This is an amazing paper about a history of sexuality across human civilization, especially in the global north, because that's where the tremendous amount of our research has been done and what we have. There we go. There's a shortened version of this URL. Let me make sure it works. And it takes you here. Okay. Well, this is taking you to the Google Scholar page for this thing. And you'll have 4 links there. The third one down says PDF. Click on that one. It's a free PDF of this article. It's an amazing paper breaking down sexuality and archaeology. And it talks about like different views of what gay and straight even were. They talk about how like, the Greeks, it was totally normal for men to have sex with men. You were still straight if you did that. It wasn't the man, it was who was being penetrated. That was the difference. Whoever was giving and taking.
That's actually, I read a book in a cultural anthropology class that I took in undergrad about like Brazilian transgender prostitutes. I think it's called travesti, and it was the same thing where their gender basically at the time depends on if they're penetrating or being penetrated. When I read that book at like 19, I was like, wow, my worldview of everything is broken.
I know I've said I know I've suggested this one a few times on this channel, but this is Human and Evolution and Human Sexual Behavior by Gray and Garcia. And like the beginning of this book, they're talking about, you know, escorts, and they're talking about people who rent a boyfriend. They go to an island and rent a boyfriend for a while. They talk about whiptail lizards and shit in here, all sorts of things. There's a tremendous amount of diversity in human sexuality, and we live in this little Eurocentric culture that's like, no, but boys like girls, and that's it.
Right.
And then if everything else is weird and different, it's like, no, there's a lot of ways to be a person, man. There's a lot of ways.
It's true.
It's so frustrating. With that, we're gonna do. We've the lines are still loaded up, but we've got a little bit of a schedule today. So I'm gonna do like one, maybe two more quick calls. We had a bunch of people calling in about theism, and then we're gonna jump over to super chat. Is that cool with you?
Sounds good.
Sick. Okay, great. So we have one person who's been waiting for 2 goddamn hours, so we're gonna take them first. We got Vihan, I believe the name is, calling in from Arizona, talking about deconstruction and accepting reality. Vihan, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello there. I'm good.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, no, the show was entertaining.
Thank you for waiting so long.
Waiting 2 hours. I don't know if you remember, but I called in to SkepTalk previously when you were with Seth Andrews. And,
probably. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was culturally religious. Like at the time, I didn't really believe in deity, but because all my family and friends are in the religious landscape, I also chose to stay in it. So I've started actually deconstructing now. So I chose.
Congratulations! I remember that call. Yeah.
To live for myself, and so my question is like things like emotion, which can be broken down to like neurochemistry, and color is just wavelengths of light. When everything in existence can be simplified to these mundane scientific properties, I don't know. Like back when I believed in magic, it was figuratively magical, but now it's kind of that's disappeared. So, how do you go about navigating reality when your whole worldview has changed?
Oh, lean into the weirdness, yo. That's the best part of it. Like lean in, steer into the skid. Because what's happening now is you're gonna continue asking questions and checking these things, and you're gonna come up with more and more interesting answers. And some answers won't be satisfying, and you'll want to check to see if they're real and if they make any sense. You are now doing the really cool, interesting part of deconstruction, which is finding out, going back and reassessing literally everything you've ever thought about everything, and that will take a lot of time. As far as me, you're asking, how do I handle living in reality, knowing that reality is just reality? I think that's fucking dope. I haven't been bored in like 10 years, because if I'm sitting on a park bench with nothing to do, I can stare up in the space and I can be like, yo, I can think about the wavelengths of light all around me that I can see. I can think about the wavelengths that I can't see. There's more light all around me that I can't see. In a completely pitch black room, I am surrounded by blinding light. And if I wanted to prove that it was there, all I have to do is turn on a radio, because there's fucking radio waves, which are light waves, all around me all the time. And some of those AM radio waves are longer than the goddamn Hoover Dam. How fucking cool is that? And some of the smallest ones, the gamma rays, they can change my DNA and give me cancer, or maybe turn me into the Hulk, depending on what you read. And that's radical. And like just staring around and thinking about, well, why am I not being bombarded by these ionizing radiation? These lower. Oh, that's right, it's because the ozone layer. What's going on with the ozone layer? How's that getting started? Well, it's 3 oxygen molecules. Is there cool ways to make 3 oxygen molecules?
So basically, what you're saying is, you're saying be a scientist. You're saying learn a lot about
be a
science.
Be a scientist, and life gets cooler. is like the more you learn about these, what you said, mundane physical processes, the more they become less and less mundane. They're just magic. They're, for lack of a better word, they're fucking cool. And they're exciting to think about. And so, like, as far as the implication of that, a lot of people will say, like, you know, well, it makes things less special and it deconstructs things. You know, there's that old adage of like, oh, you atheists don't see the beauty of the flower. It's this perfect design. Like, no, I see the cell structure, the biogeochemical processes that sustain it, the biochemical processes that are working in it right now. I see the evolutionary history of it. I see the different wavelengths of light bouncing off of it that insects can see that we can't see. I see all of this intricate beauty in this flower, and it looks pretty. I see more than you. So what you're doing right now is you're getting into that more. You're just changing your frame, and I think that's an awesome thing for you to get to do.
All right. Yeah. That sounds good. I don't know how to think about that right now. I have to
make sure to learn about all of the different types of rays.
Seriously. Both light rays and also like differences between like manta rays and cow nose rays and bat rays. Yeah. Like learn about them too. Learn about chondrichthyan fishes and learn about light physics because both of them are fucking sick.
Yeah, I'll start with the animals. I love animals. I'm trying to start tarantula keeping, but it's scary.
Wow. Yeah.
I used to take care of a bunch of tarantulas, and I had this fucking awesome Chilean rose hair named Charlotte, and she was just the sweetest spider in the whole fucking world. You could do anything with her. Let her walk up on your face. I used to take her out every time, like, I was working at this animal sanctuary, and every time a kid came in, it was like their birthday party. Like, we have a special party hat. We got to put a tarantula on their head, and they'd be screaming. And if they were too chicken to do it, I'd be like, okay, well, as the birthday child, you get to decide which one of the adults in the room gets to wear the party hat. And then they start freaking out, too. Tarantulas are great, dude. Tarantulas are awesome. Just be careful of pink toes, because they do these stupid high kicks, and they're real weird, and they'll skitter all over the place. Those are common as well, common pets.
Yeah, also being from Arizona, I want to keep snakes because that just seems cool.
Yeah, during my undergrad, I took care of a fuck of snakes. I specialized in that. It was like snake husbandry and whatnot. We had so many of them. I had this, the worst snake bite I ever got was from a fucking like 11-foot red-tailed boa constrictor that weighed like fucking 60 pounds. She was a thick bitch. Her name was Big Bertha. And this is her skull, which is fragmented, and I have in this pressure case. Unrelated. She bit me. She lived for years longer than that. We actually made friends after that. And then when she died, she had a nerve disorder, and she died. And I made sure to take her home and chop her up. But look at those chompers, y'all. Look at those teeth. Those were embedded in this arm, and I swelled up so bad I couldn't do this with my wrist for like a month. It was awful. Snakes are great, yo. Love them.
Well, that experience doesn't sound great, but you know what?
It was my fault. I was very new at it, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I scared her, and she bit the shit out of me. She never did it again after that.
Well, all right.
Anyway.
Thank you so much for the advice. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I don't know how pressed for time you are. I do have another theistic question, but I can always come in later or call in.
You've been waiting for like 2 hours. We can take one more quick question, and then we'll go.
So I've heard your like kind of rant. I don't know how else to say it, about how Jesus loves you is offensive.
Yes.
But I mean, I agree with the points, but my question is like, is that really significant? Because like when someone says Jesus loves you, they most likely don't mean it in the offensive way it can be broken down into. So
right. I
isn't
think
it better to just embrace that that they are trying to be nice and respectful than like trying to
no.
Okay.
I haven't heard your take on this, but I can assume what your take is.
I would love to hear you assume to see how accurate it is.
Well, I would just, whenever I hear someone say Jesus loves me, it's like it's always something that they're trying to shame me for, that they don't want me to be doing, and to remind me you shouldn't do this, or it's okay if you do this because Jesus still loves you, but I'm judging you, and I'm here to like let you know that Jesus is watching.
Yeah. You're
right? Like
very close.
It's never like you're a very good person and I respect you and Jesus loves you. It's like you're a sinner. Jesus loves you. Why are you doing that? Or like you still have time to do better.
Yeah, you are very, very close. Like, is that the only thing I do is I take the intentionality out of it, because at the end of the day, I do believe that a lot of the time, like, yeah, you're right. I have also heard Jesus loves you as a condescending fuck you when they want to say fuck you, but they can't. I hear that all the time. But I think that a lot of the time, the phrase Jesus loves you is actually meant to be inclusive and welcoming and caring. And who could argue with that? I'm telling you, you're loved. Isn't that a wonderful thing? But for me, the fundamental basis of this religion is the belief that we are born in sin, that we are so wicked by our birth, we are so evil by being humans, that the best thing that can possibly happen is that we go to hell. It would be justice. It would be right for us to be tortured and burned for all eternity because we are so wicked and so evil. And yet, Jesus loves us and offers us salvation. And so what I hear is an insult, a threat, and a sick mockery of love. Insult, you're fucking wicked, evil, stupid, broken, disgusting, terror. You're a disease on society. A threat, you're going to go to hell and burn unless you believe the way that I believe. And then a sick mockery of love, because any God that would have a system like that isn't a loving God or indeed a good person in the first place. So I hear Jesus loves you as a really cruel thing to say to somebody. You're dehumanizing them, devaluing them. You're calling them a bunch of horrible names. You're threatening them with eternal torture. You're twisting and shitting all over the concept of love and how special that is in our society. And as Roxanne pointed out, you're probably calling them a piece of shit as well, and like trying to be rude about it. So to answer your question now, Vihan, about, can't I just accept that they mean something nice about it? No, because the only reason they're allowed to get away with that is because they are in the dominant social class of our country, and of the global north as a whole. The only reason they're allowed to get away with that is because they've been doing it for so long, and because they're in the majority. The only reason they're allowed to get away with that is because we live in a society that's built to pander to that kind of thinking. So they need to hear it the way I hear it. Even if they don't accept it and believe it and take it the way I hear it, they need to know what that sounds like to me so that they can adjust and be a better person in the society that we live in. For the same reason that I wouldn't say to Roxanne, you're really smart for a girl. That would be a fucking shitty thing to say, right? Even though I'm saying you're smart, and I'm saying you're smart among women. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a nice thing to say? No, it's a shitty thing to say, right? So for me to say that, it doesn't matter what my intentions are. It matters what I said. And it's the same thing with them. You don't get to choose when you hurt somebody. And if somebody's hurt by what you said, you can only choose to try to reconcile it and do better next time. And if you don't do that, that's fine. Just take accountability for that and say, I don't fucking care about your feelings. I'm going to be the kind of piece of shit I want to be. And if that's what Christians want to do, at least be honest about it. And don't come to me and say, you're not hearing me properly. That's some gaslighting, abusive boyfriend bullshit. And I understand that you believe in a God that will punish you for not loving him, so you're used to gaslighting, abusive boyfriend bullshit. But don't bring that shit into my house. I'm not for it. And that is my answer to you, sir.
Okay. Then, yeah, I understand that. I'm just still like, why do you remove the intention? We always say, go fuck yourself, Jimmy, on the show. Go fuck yourself is not a nice thing to say. However, we all know.
But Jimmy himself has said that he takes that as a compliment, and he'd rather you say that than actually say that you're doing a good job. Jimmy's uncomfortable with compliments, so he said, I'd rather you just say, go fuck yourself. So we all say, go fuck yourself. It's his consent to have that said to him. If he didn't say that and everybody said, go fuck yourself, then if it wasn't an inside joke, it would be shitty. It's context that matters, and it's consent that matters. So for me to say, here's how I hear it when you say Jesus loves you. This is what it means to me. It's very hurtful and cruel, and it's driving me farther away from your religion. If you were to then turn around and say, okay, well, Jesus loves you, you're clearly just being an asshole. And for you to say that without me saying all those things, then it's fine. You didn't know any better. I will now take this opportunity to tell you. It's like, if I, threw out the caller earlier on was asking a question about, a hermaphroditic species. And I took a second to say, hey, I know you didn't mean anything by it, but just so you know, this term is derogatory in this community. And it's not something that we should throw around anymore. Just so you know. He may have learned something in that moment. And that's fine. And as I said there's no reason to be ashamed about that or feel bad about that. You didn't know. If now he turns around and goes up to an intersex person and is like, well, you're a hermaphrodite, now he's a dick, right? Now he's an asshole. So for the same reason with this, I hear those words and I take it as an offensive thing. But I'm not going to be mad at somebody because they don't know any better. But if I've told you that I don't like to hear that and you say it anyway, then you're being an asshole. And you can't claim that you're some moral superiority because you're only doing the sweet Jesus thing if you're being an asshole while you're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. I was just...
no worries. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you asking questions. That's how we learn. And
would you interpret it like when you sneeze and someone says "bless you"? Is that interpreted the same way, or like
it's another one of those things that like when I see a cross necklace, when I see a church sign telling me that I'm Jesus is whatever, and like all of these things are offensive to me because I'm an anti-theist. I think that the lessons and the teachings and the doctrine of Christianity is morally corrupt, and it's corrosive to both human beings and our intention, our minds and our intelligence, and to society as a whole. I am offended by everything that it has to offer. But I also understand that we live in a society and that colloquialisms exist. So if someone says "bless you," of course I'm not going to be like "fuck you." I'm not going to be upset about that. But like, don't be it. I used to work for a guy who knew how I felt about Christianity, and he was very Christian. And so anytime I had anything good happen to me, he would go out of his way to say, "You're so blessed." And he was congratulating me using his faith as a weapon. He was doing it on purpose because he knew I didn't like to hear it. Now, he and I were friends, and it's fine. But if we weren't, that would have been an attack. That would have been shitty. So if someone says "bless you" when I sneeze, fine. I don't care. If somebody knows me personally and knows how I feel and has seen me on this show giving this fucking diatribe, and then I sneeze and they go out, "Hey, bless you." Fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a very different situation. Again, it's all about intentionality. It's all about intention, and it's all about consent.
Yeah. Okay, that makes much more sense. I don't come from a Christian background, so I'm not as familiar with these topics. So yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Well, it's for any religion. If someone said the same situation, if someone told me, that Allah loves me, I have the same similar problems with Islam as I do about Christianity. If somebody came up to me with any kind of religious claim, or if somebody came up to me with a pagan, I was raised pagan. I wasn't raised Christian. I was raised in paganism. We believed in spirits and witchcraft and all sorts of things. If someone came up to me and said, your ancestors are watching over you, I would have the same, like, no, they're fucking not, and leave me alone. I live my own life. Even though I used to believe that, I'm not into it. You know what I mean? It's just you know me. Don't put that shit on me. You know what I'm saying? Same exact thing, no matter the religion. It's just rude. And if a Christian is watching this and thinks that I'm overreacting, the same thing, if I were to come up to you in your church or whatever, and you're having a Christian celebration, I'm like, yeah, praise Satan, man. It doesn't matter if I believe it, if I'm sincere, if I'm kind. That's your adversary, right? You don't want to hear that shit. So if I come up to you and I'm like, hey, you have a really, you just had a baby. Isn't Satan wonderful giving you that baby? Satan bless that baby. I hope Satan does everything they can for that baby. I hope Satan's all around that baby at all times. It's the same shit. If I had a kid and somebody tried to like bless my kid, I'd knock him out. Get that shit off my kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Anyway, with that, we're going to move on to super chats. But thank you so much for waiting so long. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your questions.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the call.
Take care, man. Bye-bye. Did you have anything? I just talked for like 17 solid minutes. Did you have anything you wanted to add on all that?
Nope. I have nothing in the religious realm. to bring.
Not your bag?
Not my bag.
That's all right. That's all right. I tried to avoid, because that's not why you were here for. But like I did, this is predominantly an atheist network, and it is a hub for deconstruction. We try to help people free themselves from the binds of religion. So if we're here to do it a little bit, it's all right.
For sure.
Like I said, we are on a little bit of a deadline tonight, so we unfortunately we won't be taking the last. There's a couple of calls left, but we're done with that now. I'm so sorry. If we didn't get a chance to get to your call, it just didn't fit into the show right now. It didn't fit into the theme of what we were going for, but I appreciate you calling in. Please call in next time I'm on, and we'll try to get you on there. We usually have a few a few calls that we don't get to at the end of every show. But with that, we're going to jump into super chats because we've got a few that I've seen roll through. So let me move my thing here. Boop, 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 boop. And Arden, please.
Yes. I'm sending you, but so last time we did SkepTalk, we had to put up just a 1-up, so you're cropped weird. I'm gonna fix it while you guys go through.
What's happening with me? Look at how small I am.
Chaos right now. Okay, I'm getting.
I'm just a little guy. It's okay. I'm gonna make my little preview screen bigger.
Wait, hold on. Something's wrong. It's not.
I also can't see who's sending it.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Just everything's wrong.
There we go.
Everything's wrong.
I'm the worst producer ever. Okay.
We've got $5 from Toy Soldier 727. I love that I served in the military in a time when men and women were side by side. Women make our military stronger. They add intelligence and compassion. I love that. Look at my stupid face getting bigger. There we go. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Now
there we go.
Good. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
You're just fine. Yeah, no, I love that, because honestly, like that's why we talk a lot about diversity, and like that's one of the things is that women in our society are going to have a different perspective, a different angle, a different approach, a different a way of handling similar situations. It's a net positive to have more mindsets and more views and more thoughts. Like that's never a bad thing. I don't think. Can't think of a situation where it's a bad thing to have more thoughts. You know what I mean?
Right. 100%.
We've got $10 from BW Dingus. Forrest plus Roxanne equals great show. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
We did it. They're liking us, Alexis.
$10 from Game Master Flash. Much love for these wonderful hosts. Hope to see Roxanne again. Forrest already knows I love him. Thank you so much. So I won't say it again. Wait. Hashtag Chi Martin. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Very, very kind of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, Roxanne, I've seen a bunch of good chats that people are loving everything you have to say. I hope that you have.
I've hardly been looking, so that's good, because usually, like I said, with social media comments, it's like, who the fuck is this girl? And I'm like, I just won't look. So that's very nice.
$5 from Jamie the Dino Boy. Hey, Forrest. Hi. I'm a FTM trans guy who's really interested in biology. Do you know any recommendations for books on biological causes for gender dysphoria? Not off the top of my head. I know, like, for me, I usually suggest people to like the World Health Organization's websites on like sex and gender, where they talk about that stuff. And I just kind of forward them to the definition of gender dysphoria, so that they understand it is not some crazy disease. It's just a disconnect between your gender identity and your physical presentation, and that causes some discomfort. And like, that's a thing you can treat. The definition kind of implies the cause. You are a trans person. Therefore, you have this symptom, and this symptom can be treated. And so, yeah, that's just part of it. I can't give you any books off the top of my head about specifically that, though. I'm sure there are some out there. If you go, I would recommend look up either a gender studies course or a sexuality course or something like your local community college, and write to that professor and ask them what textbooks they're using. And I bet you anything they'd tell you. I've done that several times. That's where I got, actually, the book that I held up earlier, Evolution of Human Sexual Behavior. This was from a sexuality course at the university where I was in grad school. And they had this as like, this is the book you have to buy. And I just took notes. I didn't take the course. It was outside of my degree field. It was a completely different department. I just happened to be in the building. And I was like, yo, I'm writing that shit down, and this was the textbook that they used, and so I bought the fucking thing, and it's great. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend you do that.
Yeah, I would also
Do you have any
recommend like
ideas?
I was gonna just echo like textbooks. You can even find like used textbooks or not outdated, but like older versions of textbooks on Amazon for much cheaper because they condense a lot of information in a very digestible way. So
Yeah, that's like their whole job. 5 pounds of what from Mystic Mind Analysis? George Corpse Grinder Fisher is peak wholesome masculinity. Sings brutal death metal, growls, and donates claw machine plush toys to kids in need. I think I know who you're talking about. I didn't know what you meant until the very end. I wasn't sure until the very end, but I'm 99% sure I've seen some stuff about a death metal singer who goes to claw machines and wins toys and donates them. I think I've seen that. What a nice dude.
This is him. There he is. He looks very wholesome.
Awesome. I love him.
But he has long hair, so is this really peak masculinity? Right. We don't know.
Right.
Who can know?
What? You ever notice, like, you know, the death metal guys and like bikers and all the punk rock and everything, they're always the nicest fucking people. They're the people who will be there for you, that'll go out on a limb for you. That's why I loved it. I love that scene.
Yes.
I was very much outcast as a kid, and like I found my home amongst the punk kids and the goth kids and all these things, and like that I being yet another outcast weirdo in amongst all the other outcast weirdos, all of a sudden nobody was an outcast or a weirdo. We were all just unique and interesting. How boring to have friends that are just like you. You know what I mean?
Terrible.
It'd be great to have.
Terrible.
That's what I've always had, diversity in my friend group and diversity in the people that I surround myself with, and like the weirdos are always the best, man. That's why, isn't that why leather is such a big part of the LGBT scene? Because when gay people were it was illegal to be gay for a long time in this country, and as they were socially ostracized, bikers also were. And so gay people actually found a home amongst bikers who wore a lot of leather, and so gay people started wearing leather, and now it's like this persistent, it's not a fetish thing, it's just a persistent like thing in the LGBT scene to have this leather tradition, because these are the people that protected them back in the day. How cool is that?
I was not familiar with that, but I'm obsessed with that piece of information, and I will be looking into it after this.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I learned it, so fact check me. What's that?
Leather daddies back in the 90s were like some of the biggest purveyors of safe sex information during the AIDS crisis. So leather is like super deep in queer history.
Super fucking
fascinating.
Cool. It's one more reason why I wear a leather jacket all the time whenever it's whatever outside. And I hope that not only do I appreciate it because it's comfortable and functional, but also like I hope that that's like a signal to all the queers about me to know that I am a safe man.
I would just think that you're a cool guy.
I'm cool as shit. I won't hate you for being gay. You do.
Amazing. A great combination.
$10 from Whiskey Spirit Guide. Forrest, what is Roland's favorite Subway sandwich? I haven't asked him. I need to know for reasons. Also, destroy Mercury and free Mars. Thank you so much for supporting the cause. Fuck Mercury, free Mars, and put a sandwich in your closet for Roland. Roxanne has no idea what any of this means. Nobody tell her.
I'm just along for the ride. I'm just having fun, just having a real blast.
It's just I'll give you brief summaries just so you know what you're in for. It's when we inevitably get a million calls where people are like, well, lots of people believe in God, so there must be something there, and I don't need evidence, I have faith, and like whatever these things. My go-to is to say there's a magical goblin lives in my closet. His name is Roland. He eats Subway sandwiches. Do you believe me? If not, why not?
That.
How many people need to believe in Roland before you do? You know, at what point does it become reasonable to believe in Roland? And this is, you know, my Russell's teapot. And then destroy Mars and free Mercury, or destroy Mercury and free Mars. These are the plans that I have for the planets when I rise to power. We will be destroying Mercury we're going to mine Mercury for resources until it isn't existing, and we're going to completely strip it and use that to build solar panels around the sun, which will give us free energy. And it's going to be an amazing energy revolution. and we're going to invest in biomedical sciences, and we're going to have, there will be a day when you can run a marathon on your 200th birthday, and if you can't, you're considered profoundly disabled. It's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, by that time, we'll be an interplanetary species as well. We'll be spreading around. And by the second or third generation of people born on Mars, they're not going to have any connection to the Earth. And that's when the Martian Revolution begins. And I believe that Mars should have its independence and be freed. So I'm taking a stance on a political issue that won't be a thing for like at least 200 years. I love that. Strongly believe in Mars, man.
Amazing.
Let them decide. Justice for John Jones. $9.99 from Humanist Reformation. Each religion has long had various views on when to end pregnancy. Shouldn't we all have the religious right of when to end our pregnancy with our own bodies? The Bible says that you can have an abortion if you've cheated on your husband. In fact, the Bible says you should be forced to. So, like, right there, if you're in the evangelical right and you're like, no abortion ever unless you cheat, just say you cheated. It's like, and you'll get to have your abortion. It'll be great. All they have to do is mix some dust with some water, and your thighs will rot. What it tells you. I think there actually was a Jewish push saying that Judaism is all about bodily autonomy, and therefore we have a religious right to abortion. That was a pushback. And then, of course, the Satanic Temple coming in swinging. So fucking cool.
I want my little card. I want to get my membership card.
For the Satanic Temple?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Give me my abortion. Give it to
me. I had 3 abortions just last week, and I want another one.
Just today. This is my 4th since noon.
I'm just craving abortion today. $20 from Ericopedia. I need there to be a line stream with Forrest in the near biology future. I have questions about ERVs that Google can't answer. I'm not about to intrude on what's going on right now. This is more important. Well, maybe we'll do like just an episode of SkepTalk with just my dumb ass up here or something. But you all have to promise that you'll be there, because every time we only have one host, nobody wants to watch it. And I understand why. Who the fuck wants to listen to me for 3 hours? Fuck, man, we'll be here all night. I'll just never stop talking about one random thing. Somebody will say something about fucking nudibranchs. Like, what? Slugs? What do slugs do? And I'm like, bitch, do you know what slugs do? I'll talk to you for 45 minutes about it, and that'll be the whole show. It'll be great. Next one. $6 Canadian and 66 weird Canadian cents from Paco. Hey, thank you so much. I'd love more open discussion with Roxanne on this topic. Shame my English is not that good. I need a lot of patience. Loved your answers, though. We appreciate you calling in. Seriously. And I think your English was great. Your English is better than my whatever your language is.
Was this the question about like traditional masculinity being desirable?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Well,
no, I loved everything you had to say.
Yeah. And if Paco is still listening, you can find, I post about this. This is the kind of content that I make on all my platforms. So find me on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever, and maybe some of my videos answer some more of your questions. And if not, leave me a comment so that I can make a video replying to it. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved your questions. Seriously. They were very, very constructive. $10 from RPG Debunks. Obligatory Forrest factoid. The world's longest animal isn't what most people think. Most people think it's a blue whale, but they're not the longest. I'm assuming that's supposed to say. The longest animal is called a siphonophore. Hashtag go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Siphonophore is not just an animal. A siphonophore is a type of animal. Great examples of siphonophores would be Portuguese man-o-war is a siphonophore, but it's definitely not long. It's actually a colonial whole system of organisms. So like, there are some siphonophores that colonially chain together and make one giant ass long chain. Salps do the same thing, by the way. Look up salps, SALPS. They're little gelatinous squishy monsters that live in the ocean. And they are they look like jellyfish in pill form. And they're filter feeders. They just eat whatever gets caught in their weird little mouth nets. And they are more closely related to you than to any jellyfish because they're, strictly speaking, they're chordates. They have a little notochord when they're born, and then it goes away when they hit maturity. How cool is that? And they also do the same thing. They chain together, and they form these long gelatinous strings. They look like clear tapeworms that go on for hundreds and hundreds of feet. They're great. You into tapeworms,
like that.
Roxanne?
Have I heard of them?
I said, are you into
So
them?
you said? Am I into them? Like, in what way?
Yeah. They're cool.
Not particularly. Never really spent much time, you know.
Hold on a second.
No.
We're
I don't think I am. I think the answer to that is no, I'm not particularly
Have you ever
into them.
seen-
But maybe yeah.
Have you ever seen a Skolex?
I don't know.
So
I don't know.
this is the Skolex of the tapeworm is the top of it. It's its head, so to speak, where it's got teeth and suction cups. And I will show them to you right now. Let me go over here and do display capture and turn that off and pull this down. And look at that. This is the Skolex of a tapeworm. These are suction cups and these are teeth. They look so cool. Aren't they awesome?
I can confidently say that I'm not into them.
Oh, you're missing
You
out.
don't like how that looks.
You know what's really cool? So a great source of tapeworms for humans is raw fish. Raw fish is a great place for humans to get tapeworms because
I just ate so much sushi yesterday.
Well, and that's I was going to say. What's a great place to find a culture that eats a lot of raw fish? Check out this traditional Japanese artwork of a tapeworm being extracted from a butt. This is a thing. This is a culturally relevant situation, Roxanne. I taught that to high schoolers once. We did a class about animal parasitology. I put that up and all the kids are screaming. And I was like, hey, your parents paid me to show you that. Think about that for a minute and tell me you don't want to walk into the ocean. It's a great day. It's a great day to learn about tapeworms. Tapeworms are not in my top 10 favorite parasites, but they're close. They're really cool.
Wow.
Each one of their little segments, this is the last thing I'll tell you. Each one of their little segments is called a proglottid, and they are fully hermaphroditic in each of those little segments. So they have their little sections that go along the whole thing. Each and every one of those has a full reproductive system of both sexes and can fertilize thousands of their own eggs and can release those every day. So you can break one off and have thousands of tapeworm eggs ready to go to infect the next person. They're fucking wild, dude.
I don't like anything about that. I mean, it's interesting and cool, but the implications of it, I hate. I hate it.
Send in a $20 super chat, and I'll tell you about one of my favorite parasites. We'll go from there. 10 theoretical dollars.
Before you do this one,
from
this one is 4 consecutive super chats, so it's not going to really make sense until we get through all of them. But we'll send them off as soon as you're done reading. Okay.
So 10 theoretical dollars from Darnayel. Fantasy. Man, it's your name something. Hello, peeps. Love y'all. I have this question for Forrest, if it's okay. I started listening to the Evolution Rainbow that you recommended. Evolution's Rainbow is a book by Dr. Joan Roughgarden out of Stanford University. Talks about sex and gender spectrum in the animal kingdom. And I thought it was quite good. At first, I thought it was generally quite good. Okay, cool. Thank you. Ignoring the red flag that she starts the book calling Darwin something along the lines of the founder of evolutionism. Then in chapter 16, she ends with the sentence, "We are, all of us, descendants of those who rode together in the huge ark," which contextualized all of my many other red flags to that point. In chapter 17, she asserts without justification that any genetic engineering, especially in human and especially human cloning, is bad. I'm open to the arguments, but at that point I was wondering, why did Forrest recommend this book again? Thanks. That's a great question, and you're not the first person who's brought that up, and I also noticed those things. And it was kind of like, nah. But the reason why I recommend it is because the information about the material she's talking about is seriously good. That what she talks about with sex, gender, sexuality, and all these things is really useful information. And coming from a trans woman talking about the biology of trans people, I thought it was, especially poignant. She herself, I think, is religious, but what I got out of the book when she was talking about the ark and all that stuff, she was trying to make a moral argument for the Christians reading. If I remember correctly, she said something along the lines of like, if you are a Christian who's reading this and you're upset about what I'm saying, think about it this way. We're all descendants of these people. We're all the same family. We should take care of each other. I'm 99% sure that's what she was trying to get at. Although I will admit that the way she presented it felt heavy-handed in the religion, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like that, but like, fuck it, just read the chapter about sexual orientation. Just read the chapter about the lack of binaries in nature. Just read that and you'll be fine. There are some things in there that whatever. And as far as her asserting about genetic engineering that this is bad, she's sharing her opinion, and I don't not agree with her on some of that. I'm also not a huge proponent of human cloning because we actually talked about this on a recent show. I'm not in favor of human cloning because you're making a whole ass person as a science experiment. It eschewing the idea that later on in the future it's so prevalent and so easy that we can do it, and there's still some sort of freedom there. When we're testing it now, this person is literally born and dying as a test, and that doesn't sound right. That violates everything we have in science about implied consent, or informed consent. So, yeah, I don't disagree with her on that. So anyway, yeah, it's a really fucking cool book that has a lot of great information, and it's also her book that she wrote whatever she wanted to in there as well. So just like with any book, don't take every single line of it as gospel. There's a lot of things. You can pick something. Jared Diamond, super famous archaeologist, anthropologist, wrote many great books like Collapse and Guns and Germs and Steel and everything like that. He said some shit in this book that I found really fucking dumb. He's talking about the genocide in Rwanda, and he chalked it up to just basic Malthusian economics and just a need for more resources and shit. No, sorry. You as an anthropologist missed out on a lot there, right? And you can read Questioning Collapse, where other anthropologists pick his arguments apart. So like that's the whole point of science. Is like, okay, you made a good argument here, you made a bad argument there, let's talk about it, and let's see if we can learn something together. So with her, I thought her arguments about gender and sex were great. When she brought up religious stuff, I wasn't into it. And that's how I would treat any other book. You know what I mean? But thank you very much for bringing this up. I'm glad because I don't want you to ever take any of my book recommendations and be like, this book is perfect. None of them are. Literally none of them are. And none of them ever will be. Bark. We got $5 from Ericopedia. I am not gay, but have you seen Tay Diggs? I have not. I'm checking right now. I am also not gay, but $40 is $40. You know what I mean?
But let's see how you feel when you see Tay Diggs.
Tay Diggs.
Very attractive man.
He's not bad looking. He's not bad looking. Not my style. Not my cup of tea, but I can totally see where people, I could get it. He's got a nice smile. Good for him. Well-groomed facial hair. $10 from SNDN. It's Eric. I apologize for my cheap earbud mic. Thank you both. Also, thank you for permission to use your content. Yeah, anybody, if I put it on the internet, it's for people to use and enjoy. So by all means, if anybody's watching this and you want to clip anything that I've done, credit me, and we're good. Just that's basic decency. Like, this is from this channel. $5 from RPG Dunks. I have it on good authority. If you're a shitbag to your significant other, you might want to go from... What? You might go from an is to a was with haste. Could not process that sentence. Allegedly, of course. But just in case, be respectful. My wife...
What is the...
He's saying that if you're shitty to your significant other, you will go from an is to a was very quickly. You'll be murdered.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Or maybe broken up with, they're saying. your significant other will kill you if you're mean to them. My wife reminds me, I'm not joking about this, by the way. My wife tells me probably once or twice a week, just reminds me that statistically speaking, she is the most likely person to murder me. And
Great.
one time she was talking about, we were sitting there hanging out, and she's like, you'll never really know me. And I'm like, I know, babe, because one day you're going to murder me. And she's like, not even then, because then you'll be murdered. Swear to God, if I ever come up missing, guys, ask her first. 20 theoretical dollars from Game Force. Men not sharing their feelings is not about ridicule. Is that nobody listens or cares. Case in point, I got banned on this chat for making this comment. It will not stop me from supporting the line, but you can do better. Well, I'm sorry that somebody banned you from saying this, but like, it is important to point out that like the reason why no one listens or cares is also entwined with that thing that we're not supposed to be talking about it. It would be gay for me to hear you out. It'd be gay for you to say it. It'd be just all these things. Like these all go hand, at least in my experience, these all go hand in hand. So like, yeah, just that these are all part of the same shit sandwich of homophobia. That kind of inculcates toxic masculinity culture is this idea that like I can't express myself and you don't need to listen to me either. And so it's a repeating cycle. It's a cyclical thing where I don't want to talk about it, you don't want to hear it, so I don't want to talk about it, so you don't want to hear it, so I don't want to talk on and on.
But also, do we think that that's enough to have gotten this comment banned, or did this person share their feelings and it was just something rude?
Yeah, so
because that's what I usually see.
I'm willing to bet it was something rude because so when you guys had the call on, what's wrong with traditional masculinity, a bat signal went out to some corner of the internet and a bunch of like incels like popped in the chat and we were having to mute and ban people left and right. So I'm willing to bet this person piped their opinion around that time and was probably not received well by the mods.
Yeah, so when we say like men aren't sharing their feelings, it's like I'm feeling stressed at work, I need emotional support, not women are fucking trash. And, like, if your feeling is that you hate women, that's not what we want.
It's a different thing. Yeah, but with this comment, it could have been that what you said was actually shitty and you didn't realize it. It could have been that you got caught up in the shitty masses and it was no fault of your own. It could have been an accident. Who knows? Or maybe you put something in all caps. The mods fucking hate that. The mods will delete anything in all caps, even if it's positive. So just like maybe you put something in caps. I don't know. There's a million different reasons. But yeah, don't stress about it. Thank you very much for the super chat, though. I appreciate it, especially after you were already upset that you sent us something. That's very kind of you. $10 from WJ. Related to skepticism or religion, I would be interested to know if either of you personally ever contemplate philosophical arguments for religion. Why or why not? Are you interested in answering this at all?
When I tell you that I quite literally never think about religion. So you go.
It is unfortunately part of my job to think about religion. And so, yes, I do think about these arguments and they don't fucking matter to me. I don't care if you give me some sort of like philosophical like loop that tends to circle back to the idea of a God. Radical, cool, evidence. Go find it.
Right.
That's it. I'm sorry. Like I wouldn't argue for anything in reality. I would not present you philosophical arguments for the existence of Jupiter. I would get a fucking telescope and show you Jupiter. I'm not going to give you philosophical arguments where we've talked about trans and intersex people in this thing. And somebody even asked for evidence and we showed them. Here they are. Here's the different cultures with them. Here's the studies about them. Here's a paper about them. We'll talk about it. I'm not going to be like, well, technically, if you think about it this way, there's kind of this moral imperative for these things to exist. And it's just no. So, yeah, when you put your God on my dissection table, we'll talk. But until then, don't bother me with philosophical conversation. It's not interesting to me in this way. So, short answer, yes, I have, and it doesn't matter. $25.69 from Too Young to Feel This Old. It's almost embarrassing how excited I get to see notifications of Forrest content pop up on my feed. Well, thank you very much. Just can't get enough of that passion for science. I've very much enjoyed getting to meet Roxanne. Best to you both. Thank you so much.
Yay! Thank you.
$10 from Candace Planet. I've never heard anything about erotic, romantic, sexual attraction before, as well as several other topics y'all covered. Thank you so much. Y'all are amazing. Hosts, Arden, everyone, cheers. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate that. I'm glad you learned something today. $10 from Dylan Fooler. Thank you for mentioning leather. Much of the early kink / BDSM had solidarity because both BDSM / LGBTQ were / are seen as deviant. Also, lesbians caring for AIDS victims and burying them when their family wouldn't. There is a lot there.
Yep.
And here's what's so interesting. When we talk about, we get on the same thing quite a bit when we talk about people of color. When we talk about Black communities and Hispanic communities and Asian communities, especially here in this country where they're isolated and segregated. We talk about the individualistic nature of these cultures. So for those listening, you're probably taught, being in America or anywhere in the global north, you're probably taught about individualism. I am me, and I am responsible for my actions and my life and myself, and I make myself, and I'm my own person, and blah, blah, blah. And this is so ingrained in our society that people very often don't even realize there are other options. So this individualism is contrasted by individualism, which a lot of cultures have. Is this idea that I'm not just me, I am the result of my family and my community. I am an extension of them. I am here because of them. My very existence and who I am as a person is an emergent property of the people around me. So it's not individual, it's individual. I'm part of this whole thing. If you talk about me, you're talking about everybody. If you hurt me, you're hurting everybody. An assault on any one of us is an assault on all of us. And you see that a lot in minority communities in this country, be they racial or sexual minorities, where they've had to defend each other and rely on each other and protect each other when the majority wouldn't. And so you see this sense of community, individualism of, we're all in this together. This is our little camaraderie. You know what I mean? It's super fucking cool to think about. Super cool. $10 from Zoe Holland, off topic. But Forrest, you're so slay. Thank you. And Roxanne is too. You're amazing. I'm so attracted to intelligence and empathy and education. Big love from Australia and the LGBTQ plus community. Also, what's your favorite frog, please? Roxanne, what's your favorite frog?
I don't know different types of frogs. The cute, whatever the cutest little tiniest little baby frog is, would be my favorite frog.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me
That's
what kind
not a
of
bad
frog
answer.
I just want a tiny
That's not
little
a bad answer, but
baby frog.
So first of all, there actually is a frog that is so small that it can't jump properly. And I'm
That's my
looking it up
favorite
right
frog.
now.
Because if I were a frog, I would be the kind that couldn't jump.
Because I'm going to make this big so we can see it. And then I'm going to pull this guy up. And there's that one. And here is this little guy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here and screen share again. And this is the smallest kind of frog.
This is my tiny little baby frog. Wow.
Look at how great they are.
I love it.
Awesome?
I'm so glad that is my choice. And
my favorite frog is the Titicaca scrotum frog. That's actually what it's called. They live in Lake Titicaca, and they look like floppy ball bags, and their actual name is the Titicaca scrotum frog. Aren't they fucking awesome?
It looks like he's wearing armor.
Right? Nope, that's just flappy old nut skin on that frog. I love them.
Wow.
$5 from Emery King. Forrest, last night I found out my sis, who isn't religious but was raised religious, doesn't believe in evolution. I'm so sorry to hear that. She didn't want to learn either. Help. Send her. There's this YouTuber out there named Forrest Valkai, and he has a whole series called The Light of Evolution. It's a 4-part series in a language that anybody can understand, and you should send that to somebody who doesn't believe in evolution. It'd be great. That's what I would do anyway.
So this one was a sticker, and our system doesn't read stickers, so I did this.
Okay, so $49.99 from me and my human. Thank you so much for the sticker. I appreciate it. I wish I could see it. I wish I saw the sticker. I bet it's probably in the chat still.
It was a little
I see it.
Inu. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, with the little sparklers. Love it. Thank you very much. That's incredibly kind of you. $10 from RPG Debunks. Cordyceps are the best parasites. Sorry, Forrest. Whatever you think is the best is objectively wrong. Why are they the best? Because fungi are freaking amazing. First of all, no. No. Cordyceps are fascinating parasites. They're freaking radical. They're very cool. But y'all, have you heard of Entamoeba histolytica? Have you heard of it?
Can't say I have. Can't say I've ever heard that combination of sounds together in a word.
Oh, well, let me help you. Let me go ahead and pop this guy back up one more time. We switch over. Oh, fuck, there you go. Look at that. That right there. That's Entamoeba histolytica. It is an amoeba, and it gets inside your body by eating contaminated foods and things. It goes into your digestive tract, gets up into your intestines, and when it's in your intestines, it goes through what we call amoebic migrans, moving, and it causes a condition known as amoebic dysentery. And you know the word dysentery, right? You're pooping a whole bunch. Usually people who die of dysentery die of dehydration because they're pooping so much that they lose body water. When you get amoebic dysentery through visceral amoebic migrans, you poop so hard your heart gives out. You poop so hard and so frequently that you die of exhaustion. That is Entamoeba histolytica, and it's one of my top 10 favorite parasites. They're great.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I feel between this and what was it, the tapeworm that we were talking about? I'm just feeling
tapeworms, yeah.
Good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah. If we get a $20 donation, I'll talk about Leishmania brasiliensis. It'll scar you for life. It's fucking horrifying. Another one of my top 10 favorites. 10 Australian dollars from Zoe Holland. That's an incredibly Australian name. I also love both those frogs. Ooh. Please look at the turtle frog. It's an Australian frog. It's so ugly. It's one of my favorites. Also, please, Forrest, more Reacteria. My autism needs you. So we've actually got Reacteria scheduled for August, September, October, November, and December of this year. I had to look at my calendar over there. And I've got a sort of a micro half-ass Reacteria coming out at the end of this month as well, which didn't throw up. I did a collaboration with the Real Mechanic Stuff channel run by Donut Media, and they reacted to a bunch of animals and cars, and then I made a little guest spot appearance, and so now I'm also going to react to a bunch of animals and cars. So not real Reacteria, but cute animals. You can come see that. But yeah, every month for the rest of this year, we should have a Reacteria coming out or something similar to one. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. What? Well, if anybody wants to learn about Leishmania, now is your last chance. And if not, fuck you. You're missing out. But anyway, this was an amazing show. Like, we covered a lot of cool things.
It was so
fun. I hope everybody learned something. I know I did. Like we covered a ton of stuff. I seriously appreciate your time, Roxanne. Like, honestly, like, you are a freaking rock star up here, and like, it just, everything you had to offer was so poignant and so well put together. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, like, really, this was super fun. I've been super excited since you DM'd me like last month. So amazing.
Anytime you want to come back, if you ever want to do this again, hit me up. I usually host this show once a month, so we can always have you back on if you want to talk more about feminism and biology and sociology and whatever else you want to talk about.
Nice.
Before we let you go, though, where can people find you? What projects you have working on? Like, what are some shout outs that you can give yourself? We've got about a little under 3,000 people watching right now. So what do those 3,000 people need to do to go find you?
I'm pretty sure my Beacons link is in the info for this. So that has links to everything, my TikTok, my Instagram, my fundraiser for my dissertation, which I'm about to start collecting data on like next week. And that's where I also update like any current pop press pieces that I've been featured in or anything. So everything is in that Beacons link. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right on. That's excellent. I'm glad. I want to make sure you're out there. Really quick. Let me just really quickly do this here. That's what I'm looking for right there. And I'm going to click this. And we're going to, I know. I promise I'm doing something. I'm so sorry. You're just having to sit here and watch this. No, it's okay. There we go. So, really quickly, because I saw in the chat, somebody said, sent $5 and asked, what's that terrifying thing? And can you spell it for me? I'll do more than spell it for you, even though we didn't get it. I just want to see the fucking, I love horrifying our guests. This is the last parasite, and then we'll be done. We'll end after this. This will be the last thing I show you.
A great note to end on with a terrifying parasite.
Yes. Flip. Okay, here we go. This is Leishmania brasiliensis. They're cute. Little guys.
So cute and small.
Yes, they are little trypanosomes. Pull up larger, you shit. Oh, whatever. They're little trypanosomes. They're these little tail-having flittly guys. And they are like way smaller than your blood. The first time I had one of these on a blood smear, I didn't think I could see anything. I was just seeing blood cells. And I was like, why is it staticky? It's because there's like 50 of these surrounding every blood cell. They're real little guys. And you get them from a bug bite. And they get into your bloodstream and they start growing. And you won't know that you have them for like 5 years. Until all of a sudden, one day, you develop mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, and the bottom half of your face starts to rot off. It's crazy. Mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. It's horrific. So look them up. If you want to be traumatized, they're called Leishmania brasiliensis, and I'll put that in the chat. And I probably spelled it wrong in the chat. There you go. Fuck all of you. Enjoy your nightmares of that thing.
I will be thinking about that all night.
And there's different kinds too. That's just brasiliensis. There's a different species of leishmaniasis that causes a visceral leishmaniasis where it fucks up your insides. There's another one that just causes just the cutaneous. It just affects your skin. And if you survive that, you can get what's called like Kala-Azar disease, where you have these little lumps all over you, and they fuck you up, man. They fuck you up in lots of different ways. And they're some of the freakiest, weirdest, grossest parasites. And they're like probably my number 3 favorite because they're so horrific, man. They're so scary.
New fears unlocked. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Sometime soon, we'll sit down, we'll have a cup of tea, and we'll talk about parasites for a while. Until then, this has been a fantastic show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for watching and asking questions. Thank you to everybody who called in to talk to us, especially people who didn't get on the show. Please call in next time. Thank you so much to our mods for moderating. Thanks so much to our call screeners for call screening. Thank you so much for Arden for producing. Thank you so much to Roxanne for being here, and have an awesome rest of your day, and never, ever stop learning. Bye-bye. Now we go over here. We have to sit here and act like we didn't just wave, and it's real awkward. We just stand here and stare at the screen.
Wow.
We're just over here now. Yeah. It'll be over soon.
Just chilling.